Chapter 231. Pitiful. The time they spent together was definitely an unforgettable memory for the two of them. Still, during this trip, Riser wanted to ask Aquino about her, especially about her father, but in the end, he didn't say anything. After all, that question would fool the mood on the trip. Moreover, it was troublesome. Riser didn't mind helping Aquino to mend her relationship with her father, but everything was based on her decision. Was she going to just make up with her father just because her father became the leader of the Gremory? Riser knew that Aquino wasn't that kind of a woman, and she had stood up until now by herself without the help of anyone. If she didn't ask him to help her mend the relationship between her and her father, then she wouldn't say anything. Yet, he also knew if he didn't ask, the other would ask, so, at the end of the trip, he decided to ask her. Aquino, can I ask you something? Aquino was still unable to wake up from the dreamy trip that they had just taken. Every day was just wonderful. Moreover, with all the acts they had done, it wouldn't be weird if she got pregnant. Do you want to do it again, darling? With the warm yet seductive voice of an older sister who looked helplessly at her lover, Aquino seemed to make an automatic reaction by resting her hand on his pants, gently caressing his little Riser. Her body was still sore, but she could do with her hands and mouth. If this wasn't enough, she could use her breasts. Still, if possible, she wanted to tie him up and lock him in the room so he couldn't escape and stay with her forever. Riser wasn't sure, but his body shivered due to a cold for some reason. Is your father Barakiel? That question instantly erased all the conquestish atmosphere between them. Aquino was quite awkward and couldn't look straight as she knew that he didn't like the fallen angel that much except her, of course. If Riser had the ability to read minds, he would say that wasn't the case, especially when 3 fallen angels almost seduced him. You don't need to feel scared. I love everything about you, Aquino. Still, even if he couldn't read Aquino's mind, it was easy to handle a woman when they were in this state, as he only needed to say something that eased her heart like, I love you, everything will be okay, and many others. There was no need to think too much, thinking seriously, since as long as the woman's negative feelings disappeared, everything was solved. Aquino felt at ease hearing those words and leaned at him affectionately. Yes, he is my father. Is that so? Is that all? What do you mean? I thought that you wanted to ask me something else. Aquino felt confused as Riser only asked that single question. What should I ask? Like, how strong is Gremory's power? Like, how strong is my father? Or what is the weakness of the Gremory? Riser lightly tapped Aquino's nose helplessly. Do you think I am a tyrant that will k*ll anyone? Don't say something like that again. We, the devils, the fallen angels, and the angels are an ally now. If you say something that will interrupt this peace, I will punish you. Then, can you punish me now? Aquino asked as her face flushed and deep, bright red. Riser stared at Aquino helplessly. You damn masochist. Still, there was something that he needed to remind her of. While I think that you might have realized it, Azazel has become a trainer for Rias and her peerage members. More importantly, the Youth Devil Gathering will start soon. I am sure that you will face a raiding game next time. By then. Are you worried about me? Aquino quickly realized everything before he even finished his words. Isn't it natural? Riser didn't think there was anything weird about him worrying about his woman. In this Youth Devil Gathering, there was no doubt Rias would wish to win the raiding game, held for this event, and everyone would be working hard under the tutelage of Azazel or others who were asked by Azazel. Then, there was no doubt the one who was tasked to train Aquino would be Barakiel, her father. Riser was sure that even though Azazel wished Aquino and Barakiel to make up as they were a father and a daughter. Even though Aquino had been avoiding Barakiel, there was no doubt Azazel would set up the meeting between the two even if she didn't wish to. With her submissive attitude, especially after what she had experienced during her childhood and how she was trained as a Rias servant, Aquino definitely couldn't reject this meeting, so he might as well remind her. Just remember, you are my woman. No one can force you except me. How unreasonable. However, strangely enough, her breathing became even harder as she thought about how forceful he was with her, especially during their first day at Takayama. Even now, when she thought about all of that, her nether region tingled lewdly as it secreted a lot of love juice. But, what do you think I should do? You really asked me that question? Riser looked at Aquino and saw that she was staring at him with an earnest gaze, trusting his every decision. He sighed helplessly inside his heart but held her hands firmly in his palms. Aquino, whatever your wish is, I will be on your side. Thank you. Aquino pushed him as she was unable to control her overflowing feeling. However, inwardly, Riser didn't have a good light toward Akino's father. Barrichel's wife, who was also Akino's wife, was K*led, yet he just let his daughter away like that. Did he not care about those who were Akino's well-being, especially when she was cornered by Minnie? Also, did Barricchel not feel angry at those 5 principal clans who drove his wife to death? Did Barricchel just accept the death of his wife was just like that? While Barricchel might be Akino's father and give his everything to his race, if he made an enemy of the 5 principal clans, he might endanger the whole fallen angels, especially when their race was still fighting against the devil and the angel. Once again, if Barricchel was strong enough, there was no need for him to endure all of this. Unfortunately, weakness has always been a sin. It was also due to this it was hard for Riser to appreciate Barricchel, especially when this guy just obediently accepted everything without doing anything. Then, as he watched Akino, who rode his waist like a valiant female horse jockey, Riser thought that she was a little pitiful. After all, whether the father or the daughter, they were all used by others. However, such a life was no longer for Akino, especially when he protected her. Nevertheless, after that trip, Riser returned to the underworld as he needed to prepare his raiding game, with the top 3 along with many others, as there were many things that he needed to finish, especially for someone of his status. As for Akino, she returned to her everyday life. It's a gift from Takayama. You can try all of them. Thank you, Akino-san. Issei, Asia, Kiba, and Gasper were happy as they saw many souvenirs from Takayama brought by Akino. It's good. Azazel even joined as he munched on the mochi. However, Akino noticed the strangeness of Kaneko. What's wrong, Kaneko? Are you not joining? With Kaneko's gluttony, it was impossible for Kaneko to remain calm with all the food she brought from Takayama. Kaneko's body tensed, hesitating, but Akino. Akino tried to suppress the uncomfortable feeling in her heart as she answered Rias impeccably. What's wrong, Rias? It's been a while, but how about we sleep together tonight? Rias asked with a gentle smile. Chapter 232. Lie. Okay. Hiding her uneasiness through her gentle smile, Akino answered Rias' invitation. That's good. Rias seemed happy with Akino's answer. Did Rias know about their relationship? Akino wondered, but when she saw this smile, she felt that wasn't the case. With her understanding of Rias' personality, it was impossible for her to remain calm the moment Rias understood her relationship with Riser. Instead, she could imagine how Rias would be enraged by what she had done, even ignoring everyone inside the room. Yet, this wasn't surprising as Rias was a princess, and she was often spoiled. Kaneko, Asia, you come with us too, okay? Let's have a girls' party. GI girls' party. Asia was surprised but also happy. Why yes. It's my first time, but I will do my best. You don't need to be tense. Let's just have fun, okay? Rias kindly said. Why yes, Bucho-san. Asia answered with a soft voice. However, Kaneko could only lower her head as she didn't dare to say anything. GI girls' party. Issei started to imagine the B*OSS of Rias, Akino, Asia, and Kaneko were together as they took a bath, slept, and did various other things together, causing him to have a massive nosebleed. Goa. Issei fell, but his hand was raised high. Gobucho, can I join this girl's party? His heart was beating so fast as if he was about to enter the Forbidden Garden. No. Crack. Issei's body crumbled due to disappointment, but he felt a reliable hand on his shoulder. Issei-kun, how about we have a boys' party too? Kiba asked with a gentle smile. I can wash your back, you know? Why yes, let's have a boys' party too, senpai. Gasper shyly said as he held his skirt. It's my first time, but please be gentle with me, okay? I don't want such a party. Issei roared with all of his might due to the injustice. Meanwhile, Azazel smiled as he wished such a peaceful day would continue forever. In the end, whether it was the girls' party or the boys' party, all of them were held at the same time. Naturally, at a different location, Rias, the initiator of this event, didn't care much about the boys. The party was held at Akino's house, and whether it was Kaneko or Asia were invited. Excuse me. Asia entered Akino's house nervously yet excitedly. Please, come in, Asia. Akino welcomed Asia to her house with a smile. Yes, Akino-san. Everyone is in the living room. Dinner is almost ready. Please wait for a moment. Oh, let me help you too. Watching Asia, who was eager to help, Akino felt moved since, whether it was Rias or Kaneko, they were all lazy and never worked on the house chores. Thank you, Asia. If that's the case, then I will accept your help. Yes. As Asia helped to prepare dinner in the kitchen, Aquino instructed her as to what to do, but her eyes often wandered toward the living room, where she could see Rias and Kaneko. To be honest, she had been feeling unsettled, especially when she could see Rias was like any before. However, Aquino could see a difference in Kaneko as she had been tense from the beginning to the end. Still, it was impossible for her to approach Kaneko, especially when Rias had always been around. Did Rias know about her relationship with Riser? When Aquino thought of this, her heart was beating so fast due to the nervousness, wondering what Rias would think of her. While Rias might not say anything, she had a guilty conscience, and she knew that she was wrong, especially when she hid all of this from Rias. Yet, how could she not hide this relationship? Unlike before, the relationship between Riser and Search was far from good. Still, Aquino knew that it was wrong for her to feel like this. But when Surzek passed away, she felt elated secretly as there was no need for her to hide her love for Riser. Nothing could stop them anymore, including Rias and her family. Instead, they might even support her, especially due to her status as the only daughter of the leader of the Gremory. Nevertheless, Aquino had never thought about her father and had always thought that her status was lower than Rias, especially when she had decided to cut her relationship with her father. Yet, everything was okay. As long as she had Riser, she didn't care about anything. So at that moment, she knew that she had made up her mind. Aquino knew that she needed to tell the truth to Rias. There might not be a need for her to stay about her relationship with Rias, but as expected, this feeling when she needed to hide anything from her master was extremely uncomfortable, especially when she had always thought of Rias as her best friend. Nevertheless, Rias was far from calm from what she appeared to be. Her heart was a mess after she saw the truth, but after she left Takayama a few days ago, she also realized that it might be karma. Rias had decided to take away Riser from Sona even though she knew that Riser was Sona's husband. As she had decided to do something so disgusting, she should also expect that someone should treat her the same way, right? Nevertheless, Rias wondered when their relationship began. Moreover, after they shared that kiss, Rias wondered why Riser didn't say anything about his relationship with Aquino. Was this his revenge? Did he hate her? Yet, if he hated her, then he wouldn't kiss her, right? Rias had no way of reading what Riser was thinking, and it was what made her a mess as she knew no one she could rely on except for Riser. Yes, she knew the only one that she could rely on was Riser. Except that there was no one, especially when she knew how this world was ruled by the strong. Rias might have a talent, but a talent was just a talent unless it bloomed. Was this a punishment for her? Rias thought of many things that had happened to her, and she just couldn't believe that she would encounter such an experience in her life. However, even with such mixed feelings within her heart, she didn't show it on her face and just had dinner with everyone, having fun together. Still, while Asia was having fun, Kaneko was as taciturn as usual as she knew that it was the calm before the storm. As someone who knew the truth, she just didn't know what to do, and she was also helpless as she was weak. Kaneko suddenly thought about when she sat on his lap, enjoying his presence, which gave her peace of mind as she knew she would be okay as long as she was by his side. Riser-sama. Still, at night, everyone decided to fall asleep together. Aquino, who slept right next to Rias, saw Asia had already fallen asleep, so there was no need to wait anymore. Rias, are you still awake? What's wrong, Aquino? Rias, who hadn't fallen asleep, felt her heart was shaken. I am sorry for bothering you, but I have to apologize to you. Why did you apologize? I have been hiding it, but the truth is, I have been with Riser. What do you mean? I am his woman. When those words fell, Aquino felt all the guilt on her chest disappear as she felt relief. However, Asia, who woke up from their conversation, widened her eyes, but she noticed Kaneko, who made a gesture for her to keep quiet. Neither Asia nor Kaneko fell asleep, but they said nothing as they knew the confrontation between Aquino and Rias was about to begin. Chapter 233, by *ch. Her chest trembled as Rias tried to endure something. If she was still the princess of the Gremory house and the little sister of Surzek Lucifer, she would lash out at Aquino directly. However, she lost her status and knew that if she didn't want to lose everything, she had to grow up. Still, why? Why did you tell me all of this? Do you want me to keep lying to you? To be honest, if Rias didn't know the relationship between Riser and Aquino, she would think that it was better not to know anything. The two could pretend that nothing had happened, but it was different now as she knew the truth. As she knew the truth, she wondered when Aquino was going to tell her the truth. Still, as expected, it was hard. Yet, she could only accept it. How did it begin? Aquino looked at Rias with a surprised expression as her reaction exceeded her expectation. She thought that Rias would lash at her and even blast her destruction ability at her, but Rias only calmly asked how it began. There was no need to hide anything as there was nothing shameful. Nevertheless, Aquino tried to beautify it slightly as she knew when her relationship with Riser started, she was like a hungry lioness. At this moment, no one said anything, and they just listened to Aquino's story. Even Asia and Kaneko were the same. You invited him into your house? Rias thought for a moment and realized that her time with Riser was quite limited. Even though they often met each other, the occasion and the time they stayed were short. Moreover, the others had always been present, which made it harder for her to develop their relationship further. If Aquino could do it, then she could do it, too, right? Rias knew how beautiful she was, and she also understood how men were drooling whenever they saw her. It could be said that her body was her most precious, and it was also the thing that made Riser obsessed with her. Rias could somehow imagine how he held her body tightly, obsessively, as he ate her like a beast. Such a thought somehow gave a shudder, yet exciting. However, Aquino poured cold water into Rias. Don't copy me, Rias. There was no need for Aquino to wait for Rias' answer as she could tell what this young man thought from her expression. Huh? What do you mean? Rias looked at Aquino with confusion, then snorted. Do you think you were more beautiful than me? While it was true that Aquino's breasts were much bigger, she didn't think that she lost to Aquino. If you offer your body, it will make you appear cheap, and he will look down on you even more. Moreover, did you forget what you did before? What did I do? Rias was confused. You asked him to meet Hyudo and asked him to forgive him. Even now, Aquino calls Issei by his family name instead of his first name, as if they are strangers. However, as Issei had always tried to antagonize Riser, while she didn't say anything, she despised Issei, who could only talk behind the back like a coward, especially when whom Issei spoke to as the man she loved. As he had said before, you get ahead of yourselves. Your relationship might be good, but it doesn't mean that he will allow all of your selfishness like everyone around you does. Lastly, Rias, you are too greedy. Aquino knew that she needed to say something to Rias, or else the Gremory house would be in ruin due to Rias' hasty and thoughtless decision. I know that I might sound harsh, but Rias, you are not the little sister of Lucifer anymore. There is only one that you can choose, the Red Dragon Emperor or Riser Lucifer. However, you... Aquino sighed and didn't continue to say anything as she could see Rias realized everything. Rias was unable to find the proper words as she knew how terrible her current situation was. However, she knew that Aquino was correct. As Riser had given her his kindness, showing his support toward her, Rias thought that she could ask more from him, and she believed he would agree as if it was something given, considering how he felt toward her. However, she knew this wasn't too late. Yes, as long as I sleep with him, then everything would be okay. The first impression given by Riser was horrible, and even if he had changed, it stuck deep into Rias' heart and didn't change, especially after he accepted her kiss and gave her advice. Rias thought that he was just angry as she had decided to use Issei, and as long as that feeling disappeared, then it would be okay, right? Watching Rias, who somehow got into a misunderstanding, Aquino wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She knew that everything was too late. It was almost impossible for Riser to get close to Rias anymore, but she knew that Rias definitely wouldn't believe it, especially when she knew what kind of individual Rias was. Rias might be beautiful and all, but as expected, her spoiled nature and her narcissism weren't something that could be erased with just the death of Surzek. If the meeting between Riser and Rias had been different, then this wouldn't have happened, and something might have changed, but as everything had happened, nothing could be changed. Still, Aquino noticed the movement in Kaneko and Asia. While it was subtle, she knew that Kaneko was trying to hold Asia. Naturally, everything was simple, as Asia definitely didn't want Issei to die. Issei might be a pervert, and kind of. Anyway, Asia definitely didn't want Issei to die. After all, like how he had helped and saved her, she would do the same. But Kaneko knew that this wasn't the place for them to talk or interrupt, so Kaneko tried to stop Asia. Nevertheless, Aquino realized this, so she helped Asia. Since you have made your decision, what are you going to do with Hyudo, Rias? Rias didn't notice the movement of Asia and Kaneko as she had been focused on her actions along with Akino's words that stuck deeply into her heart. Still, this question woke her up as she thought about what she needed to do with Issei. She thought for a moment, hesitating, but she made up her mind decisively. He is still my peerage member after all, and I need the power of the Red Dragon Emperor to become the champion. If Rias wanted to grow her house further, the only way for her to do that was to become the champion of the raiding game, and to do that, she needed the power of the Red Dragon Emperor. If Riser was displeased, Rias thought that she could use her body. In the worst case, she could be with Akino too. Rias' decision might seem weird, but as a heroine who could give her virginity to escape from the engagement and expose her breasts in front of everyone and even let a pervert push and suck her nipple in public, it wasn't weird, right? Akino opened her lips, then closed them again. With that answer, everything was settled. Akino knew that from now on, there was nothing that could save her childhood friend anymore. Yet, it wasn't her problem. After all, as long as she could be by his side, she was satisfied. Chapter 234. Fool. Strong. 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 Our Lucifer-sama is just so overwhelming. Riser-chan. At this moment, no one could say anything, and they could only stare in a daze as they saw Riser's might. They might have accepted Riser as their new Lucifer, but as expected, there were still many who felt that he wasn't as good as the previous Lucifer or those high-ranking within the raiding game. Even though Riser had won against many strong opponents, some individuals were just too stubborn to believe the reality before them. Still, watching how to ease Riser to defeat rank 3rd in the raiding game, Bediz Abaddon, their hearts shivered, wondering whether it was too late for them, especially when they felt the aura of Conqueror from Riser's body. No one really knew, but when Riser returned to the underworld after his massacre of everyone who was related to the fake Phoenix Tears, no one could look straight at him in the eyes except for those who reached a certain threshold of strength. It was like their minds, souls, and entire beings were conquered by his aura. Many were amazed, and they knew as long as he existed, the devil would be prosperous. Nevertheless, Bediz, who faced Riser, was extremely helpless. To be honest, while Riser was strong, he thought that with Riser's limited experience, he could defeat him, but as expected, as a new Lucifer, he knew that he had to lose, especially when this match was nothing but to give the confidence to all the devils. While Bediz felt disdain at his heart, he also knew the politics, and he knew that he had to lose. Moreover, Bediz also knew that without the king piece, he was nothing. Meanwhile, Riser got everything with his own talents innate, something that Bediz could only dream of. So, Bediz didn't mind as he also wanted to get on Riser's good side. Yet, after they faced each other, he knew how wrong he was. All of his peerage members had been defeated by Riser's peerage members, leaving him and Riser to have a duel. Yet, Bediz had to say he didn't have any confidence to win. As someone from an Abaddon house, Bediz inherited the unique power of the Abaddon clan, the power of Whole. The power of Whole allows the user to create and control portals that expand and retract according to the user's will and are able to absorb attacks and reflect them as they choose. Once these holes have absorbed something in them, the user can reopen them in a different area of space nearby to release everything they've absorbed. These spatial gaps work similarly to black holes, in which they have a gravitational pull that redirects an attack away from their target. Hole can also be used to teleport to other locations and avoid attacks, or alternatively, even teleport portions of the user's body and even their own attacks. There was no doubt it was a good power, and it was also the reason why Bediz became the 3rd rank on the raiding game. However, even if he was powerful, he was still 3rd rank, and he was still defeated by the 1st rank and the 2nd rank. Yet, when he faced the 2nd rank, there was still a chance for Bediz to win. As for the 1st rank, Bediz was helpless as the champion of the raiding game, wasn't for nothing. However, Riser was different as Bediz realized the gap of their power was simply impossible to shorten with hard work, talents, and other things. This helpless feeling, it was more terrifying than when he faced Dihauser. While Dihauser was ***full and defeated his opponent smartly, Riser was like a gigantic existence. In other words, the active struggle was simply meaningless in front of Riser. Azure domination. At that moment, everything was set ablaze in a blue color. Usually, one would connect the blue color with calmness, yet when they saw the blue flame that was released from Riser, they realized how wrong they were. His blue was like a rage. It dominated, conquered, and destroyed everything. Nothing remained. Everything was set ablaze into nothingness. The power of Whole might be amazing, but there was still a limit. Badi's hole might be able to absorb and then redirect the attack that came toward him before he returned it to his opponent. However, Riser's blue flame raised the entire area. Everything was covered in an azure color that burnt everything. Even the power of hole, which Badi's unleashed, was burnt. I lose. Badi's thought that he would lose in a handsome way, and the two of them would have shown a great photo together as they admitted each other's strength, yet he realized how arrogant he was. In front of Riser, even if Badi's held the king piece, everything was meaningless. However, Badi's didn't mind, as the one who had defeated him was everyone's dear new Lucifer. Knowing this, Badi's felt better as his leader was such a strong being. Still, due to the fire, his body was burnt, but a gentle warmness suddenly enveloped it as he saw it healed. Are you okay? Badi's was surprised, but he quickly realized it was the power of Riser's destruction and healing. Everyone saw Riser's power clearly, which amazed them. Thank you, Lucifer-sama. You don't need to. I only do what I should do. As Badi's healed, there was no trace of hatred or anything. Instead, the relationship between the two was warm as he also showed submissive, showing incredible respect toward this young Lucifer. This act was seen by everyone, and all of them clapped their hands warmly as they were moved by the interaction between the two. Badi's might have been lost, but everyone felt it was natural as his opponent was Riser Lucifer. As everyone clapped their hands, they couldn't wait for Riser's next match against Roygun Belphegor and Dihauser Belial. Roygun aside, as she knew that he would lose, but she didn't mind as the purpose of this match had never been her victory. Nevertheless, watching how strong Riser was, she became curious about him. However, Dihauser was different. As Dihauser watched how easily Riser defeated Badi's, he fell into silence. Many said that he should lose to Riser, so it was for everyone's future. Yet, there was no way for him to do that. After all, Dihauser had always upheld the righteousness and fairness. There was no way that he would agree that such unfairness would happen in the sacred game known as the rating game. Knowing this, Dihauser only shook his head when he saw how Badi's was defeated, thinking that it was a fake match that was controlled from the beginning. Dihauser knew that something needed to be done, as he didn't want the game that he loved the most to be tarnished by this young Lucifer. However, there was nothing he could do with his limited power, wealth, and authority, and it was also because of this that Dihauser couldn't wait for his match with Riser Lucifer, as it was also the time when he was going to rip that fake mask. Still, even if Riser knew what Dihauser was thinking, he could only shake his head, thinking that this guy was a fool who was easy to manipulate. However, let's think about Dihauser later as the Youth Devil Gathering was about to start. Chapter 235. Sona is the new princess of the underworld. Good work, dear. When the match ended, Sona came, bringing a towel and mineral water for her husband. Thank you. Riser accepted the towel and mineral water from his wife as he kissed her forehead, showing his appreciation. Saji sighed, watching the intimate exchange between the two, but the rest didn't say much, as Sona was Riser's wife. Riser-sama, is that guy really the third rank? Zenobia suddenly asked. Yes, what's wrong? Riser looked at the silly girl, wondering what she was going to say. I know that it is wrong for me to say this, but why is he so weak? Zenobia was confused. She knew that with her status as a low-class devil, she shouldn't say this, especially to Badi's Abaddon, who was an ultimate-class devil, but she couldn't help it. It's not that he is weak. I am just too strong. Riser's answer was as simple as that. Everyone. What could they say? However, no one could deny it as Riser was the Lucifer. Riser had to become the strongest, or else that name wouldn't fit him. Nevertheless, the power of Badi's Abaddon was quite interesting. The power of Whole was a good ability, as it was versatile. However, if there was a weakness, it lacked power as it couldn't be used to attack unless to redirect an attack. Still, congratulations, you have defeated the third rank of the rating game. Riser was surprised. Would he get a reward? There wasn't much nonsense from the system. Congratulations, you have received Busashoka Haki. Busashoka Haki. Riser was familiar with this reward as it wasn't his first time receiving a reward from the world of One Piece. It is also an ability that allows the user to use their own spiritual energy to create, in essence, an invisible piece of armor around themselves, providing incredible offensive and defensive capabilities. However, something attracted him after he got this ability. Spiritual energy, huh? This energy was different from stamina or demonic power, but something that was born from will. There was no doubt that it was an abstract concept, and it was impossible to tell the amount of will that one possessed, which made this type of energy different from stamina or demonic power. To be honest, it was his first time to know that such an energy existed. However, whether it was spiritual energy, stamina, or demonic power, he could use either of those types of energy to use the Busashoka Haki. Nevertheless, similar to his stamina or demonic energy, his spiritual energy was also limited. Riser sighed, wondering when he could break the black chains around his body as he wished to become Desperado. However, he realized that in this world, there weren't many creatures that could hurt or even K*LL him, especially when he had the ruler. As long as this ability existed, no one could K*LL him. Still, there were still 2 matches, and from the system, he knew he would get rewards by defeating the second and first ranks of the raiding gang, Roygun Belphegor and Dihauser Belial. With the thought of the 2 individuals that he needed to defeat next, he suddenly felt 2 soft feelings pressed onto his back. Congratulations, Riser-chan. Seraphal suddenly leaped into his back and hugged him tightly, rubbing her face against his cheek from behind happily. Sona only stared at her older sister in silence. She wasn't sure how many times Seraphal had done this, and her nerve was stronger, especially when she had seen him with Rias and even had a threesome with Zenobia. Frankly, when everything happened, Sona realized she wasn't that angry. Instead, she felt quite sorry for Riser as she knew that her body was unable to endure his S***Zul drive. Moreover, she had also been quite busy lately, especially when she was the Youth Devil Gathering was about to start. Still staring timidly at her husband, Sona wondered whether it was okay for her to ask a request, especially when she knew he was so busy. What's wrong, Sona? After staring at Seraphal helplessly, Riser noticed his wife seemed to have something to say. So-chan is cute. Watching Sona, who was nervous, Seraphal muttered, You are right. She is my wife, after all. Riser also nodded, but he suddenly thought of something. Sona, the Youth Devil Gathering is going to start soon, right? Yes. Even though Sona was the wife of the current Lucifer, she was still part of the Youth Devil, and she needed to participate in this event, especially when she also wished to participate in the raiding game. Moreover, she also had planned to create a raiding game school for the low-class devil. If Sona didn't even have experience in the raiding game, then how could she even create one? Well, with her older sister and her husband, everything was possible, though. How about I train you and your peerage for your first raiding game? Riser suddenly said. Not only Sona but all of Sona's peerage members were surprised. Is that okay? Won't you be busy? While Riser might have easily defeated Bediza Baden, he still had to defeat Roygun Belphegor and Dihauser Belial. Moreover, there was also his job as a Lucifer, managing his territory, business, and many others. To be honest, it was amazing that Riser could solve all of those works with just 4 to 5 hours of work from Monday to Friday. If Sona was in Riser's place, she believed that she would spend much overtime, yet Riser never held back, whether it was work or play. Even if Riser became a Lucifer, he would never sacrifice his break for the lives of the devils in the underworld. After all, he wasn't Surzek Lucifer, the abnormality among the devils. It's okay. I am different from your sister, who is often going out to work. Sometimes, I envy you, Riser-chan. Seraphal sighed since, unlike Riser, who could work so fast and efficiently in his office, she needed to move to various places as she was in charge of foreign affairs. Nevertheless, there was no doubt, in terms of government management, that Riser was above Surzek, which made the rest of the mouse feel speechless as his rough image never seemed to fit how brutal he was. Did you think something rude about me? Riser looked at Seraphal. No. Seraphal shook her head, causing her twin tails to move right and left wildly. Watching the movement of the twin tails and her breasts that moved in various directions, showing how well-developed her breasts were, Riser sighed and thought that it was hard to become a good brother-in-law. Anyway, in terms of strategy, there is no need for me to say anything or give you advice, as I am sure that you can show me even a surprising strategy. Sona was one of the smartest devils, after all. However, you still lack individual power, so I will train you and your peerage members to become stronger during this summer break before your first raiding game. Even if you are my wife, I won't hold back, so be prepared. Oh, okay. Riser looked at Sona and fell silent, especially when he saw her blush and giddy. Nevertheless, Sona's peerage members were also excited as Riser would train him, but that wasn't all since the good news was just about to begin. Also, for those of you who don't have a special weapon or sacred gear, I will make a special weapon for all of you, too. Those words were enough to make all of them excited. Still, there was no doubt Sona's peerage members might surprise everyone during this youth devil gathering. Meanwhile, others might have a hard time as there was no doubt whether Riser and Seraphol were going to pamper Sona. Chapter 236, Mr. Lucifer. Even though the youth devil gathering was about to start, it didn't mean that Riser had to busy himself with it. As a Lucifer, there were many things that he had to do, especially when the Cows Brigade became even more rampant, so this youth devil gathering was managed by someone else. However, the fake Phoenix Tears incident was different. Nevertheless, after Riser went out to take down all the fake Phoenix Tears, the Cows Brigade and those involved didn't dare to touch this business anymore as they would be dead the moment they had an involvement. Whether it was the supernatural world or the average human, it didn't matter, as all of them died as long as they got their hands on the fake Phoenix Tears. There was no doubt that his action caused many dissatisfactions, especially those people who were acquaintances of those who K** led him, and those who followed him. But so what? In front of overwhelming power, they could only shut their mouths. God might have died, but the combination of the angel, fallen angel, and devil wasn't something that could be taken lightly. Moreover, due to Riser's aggressiveness, no one really knew what kind of action they should take toward this alliance. Still, the action of the East Yukai faction that quickly joined the alliance confused everyone, making many observe this faction. It was the same case with the angel and the fallen angel, wondering why this East Yukai faction decided to join this alliance, but when they heard that it was all due to Riser, they were convinced. The angel aside, as they were oblivious, the moment the fallen angel met Nurarahion, they felt like they were friends somehow. After all, only those who had been beaten by Riser understood the cruelty of this young Lucifer. However, there was no doubt as long as they accepted his leadership, he was an ideal leader since he really never got involved with their matters and just let them go as they wished as long as they didn't trouble him. Still, if they troubled him, please don't expect mercy from him. Riser's powerful might aside, the reason why he was fearsome in the eyes of others was the fact that he could accurately target and then K**LL the source of all the troubles without making a mistake. How did Riser know that? No one really knew, but they felt nothing could be hidden from his eyes as long as they tried to harm him. However, as long as they didn't try to harm him, Riser didn't seem to care about their own agendas, which made them confused about how to see him as an individual. Still, as long as they didn't trouble him, everything would be okay. This was the thought of him from the side of the angel, the fallen angel, in the East Yukai faction. Naturally, it was different from the side of the devil. If the underworld was like a company, Lucifer was like a CEO, the Great King was like the Vice CEO, and the other noble houses were like executives. As the new CEO, each of his actions attracted everyone's attention. While his power had conquered everyone, they wanted to know how he was going to govern this underworld. To be honest, if he was an ambitious one, they would be afraid as they didn't really want to change, and they were satisfied with the status quo. While some didn't want to have peace with the angel and the fallen angel, when they thought about the danger that came from the Cows Brigade, they decided to endure it. After all of them knew that if the old Satan faction from the Cows Brigade came to defeat the current government, their life would be hell. They would be forced to become fighters in the war and then die without being able to do anything. The active alliance between the angel and the fallen angel was naturally great as there was no need for them to fight alone, and they could even use the help of the angel and the fallen angel to solve their problem. Naturally, if the angel and the fallen angel had a problem, they would help, too. This is the beauty of the alliance. When you beat me up, I will beat you harder. If I can defeat you alone, I will bring everyone with me. Still, what everyone cornered was Riser's ability to govern. To be honest, they felt worried and thought of using their seniority to take some of the advantages, but Zekrom stopped them, which made them helpless, and to be honest, they didn't want to anger Riser. Especially when some of the prominent families on the underworld disappeared due to the Cows Brigade. If they didn't want to lose Riser's protection, then they could only stand close to his side. While it is a cliché, the method of having an external danger that can make everyone gather together is proven to be effective. However, what made everyone feel relief that Riser's way of governing was stable and reliable was that it was almost dull. Nothing has changed. Instead, the system became even more efficient and faster. If there was something that perfectly described his way of governing, it was like a precise machine. There was no ambition, and it was like he was forced to take this position, but since he was in this position, he had to do it. Knowing this, strangely enough, all of them felt relief. Change. Some might be good, but some might be bad. There was no way to describe how the change would have been if the change hadn't happened. However, there was no doubt there would be a failure, and this was something that no one wanted to see. Yet, it was impossible for a failure not to happen. If there was something that they had to do as a leader, it was to minimize the failure and use this failure as a lesson so they could get closer to the success change. However, Riser was too lazy for the change. He also didn't have a particular interest in becoming Lucifer, so he did his work on minimal without any changes as he was too lazy. If someone wished to change, it was better to give it to the next generation. Maybe his children would do it. Nevertheless, his boring day as Lucifer continued. Still, Riser's actions confused Ajuka. Initially, Seraphol, Falbium, and Ajuka often went to him to check on him, trying to help him, but they saw that Riser could do his job better and even lazier than them. Seraphol, who saw this, wished to bring him into her magical girl show. Falbium, who saw this, wished to learn from him and even called him a teacher. However, Ajuka wished to observe Riser, yet this observation made him even more confused as Riser wasn't like someone who wished to K*LL Surzak because Riser wished to become Lucifer. Instead, Riser was like Falbium, who became a leader because no one could take the job other than them. Still, Ajuka wasn't in a hurry as the time for a devil was long. So, due to that, Ajuka didn't bother to waste his time and left for his job and hobby while waiting patiently until Riser showed an opening. Yet, what Ajuka didn't know was that Riser had left a bomb for him, and in the near future, it would explode at a time no one would expect. Nevertheless, under Riser as a Lucifer, the underworld continued as usual, and it was also moving in a good direction, especially when they didn't need to fight against the angel and the fallen angel. However, during those boring working days, the youth devil gathering was about to start soon, and due to that, someone came to his office. The knocking sound was heard. Without raising his face, Riser said, "Enter. Riser-sama, Azazel from the fallen angel wishes to see you." Azazel. Riser looked up, then nodded. "Tell him to come in, Shariya." "Yes, Riser-sama." Shariya left his office and then came to Azazel, telling him that he got permission. "Yo, sorry for bothering you, Lucifer-sama." With his usual friendly attitude, Azazel tried to greet him politely, but as expected, it didn't fit him. Riser didn't bother to look up, kept reading the Doc Asterisk mints in his hands, and continued his work. To be honest, this was something unthinkable in the past as there was no way for the fallen angel to enter the office of Lucifer, but now, it has happened, showing the alliance between the three races. It was also due to this change that probably, in the future, Riser could visit heaven. "What do you want, Azazel?" Azazel didn't care about Riser's rude way of asking. He was no longer a governor after all, and Gregory was as good as under Riser's hand. Moreover, after a purge that happened previously because some fallen angels wished to betray Riser, the current development of the fallen angels was on the right track, and Riser had never asked for anything unreasonable from them, which they were glad about. Moreover, Azazel knew that he was about to ask something rude, so he needed some preparations. "I have good news." "Oh, what is it?" "Odin, the leader of the Norse, has an interest in having an alliance with us, but before the alliance is confirmed, he wants to watch the rating game first." Azazel was thinking various ways so Riser could agree, but... "Sure." "Eh? What?" "No, nothing." It was so easy that it was unbelievable. "Which match does he want to see?" Riser asked. Azazel thought for a moment and felt that Riser's match was more suitable, but Riser's match had already ended. "How about the match on the Youth Devil Gathering?" "Okay, then tell him to come during the first match that happened on the Youth Devil Gathering in the future." "Yes. By the way, the Norse really agree with this alliance, right?" "What do you mean, Lucifer-sama?" "I mean, can Odin's words represent everyone in the Norse myth?" "That's..." "You should ask that since I don't want to get involved in his myth problem." Riser looked at Azazel for the first time. "We might wish for peace, but it doesn't mean that we are a pushover or desperate for peace with the Norse myth. Even without the Norse myth, I can protect this peace easily. Moreover, I don't want our races to be used by others to clean up the mess of others." "Yes." This time, Azazel nodded as he showed his respect toward Riser. While there were many shady things about Riser, there was no doubt he was a respectable leader for the devil and even the three races. They might wish for peace, but if other forces didn't wish for it, they wouldn't force it. That's all. "I..." Azazel hesitated. "If you have something to talk about, then talk." "I..." Azazel gulped but decided to bite the bullet. "I wish to take Tannen to train Hayato Issei. What do you think?" "Sure." "Eh? Do I need to repeat myself?" "Thank you very much." Azazel didn't bother him any longer and left. He sighed in relief, and at the same time, he was even confused about how to see Riser as an individual. "I just don't know." Nevertheless, Riser thought about Tannen, who had been left alone for a while, thinking that it might be time for Tannen to die. Moreover, he needed materials to create his new type of sacred gear, mocking gear, and Tannen was a perfect material for it. With those thoughts, Riser continued to work as usual until it was time for him to go home. Chapter 237, Bully. It was the day of the Youth Devil Gathering. Naturally, this gathering was held in the resort city on the Phenex domain that was built by Riser. While the youth would come during the X-Day, Riser, the other mouse, and the older generations had come to visit Riser's resort city first, enjoying the godlike enjoyment from delicious foods, the beauty of nature, magical architecture, and various games. Still, his resort city focused more on a quiet, serene environment than a rowdy, party-like one. For some people, this type of resort city was boring, but Riser didn't care much as it was impossible to accommodate everyone's needs. Nevertheless, even though they felt this resort was rather boring as there was no casino, loud nightclub, or festival that caused everyone's heart to be full of excitement, the calm environment in this city was something that they had never felt before. And they could also feel their bodies became stronger and healthier due to staying in this place, which surprised them. Moreover, due to it being a city created by Riser Lucifer, no one dared to cause trouble. So, many famous devils wished to stay even longer and built their own villas in this city so they could enjoy its beauty anytime. The young devil aside, this place had become an attraction of many old devils who just wished to spend quiet days. However, there was no doubt because of this city, they became even amazed by their Lucifer, as Riser was the one who built this city from nothing. Among those groups, Mouths gathered together in a special room inside the hotel where the gathering was held, waiting for the main event to start as they talked about trivial things. You went in. I can't wait to see So-chan's figure on the rating game. Seraphal was so excited that she kept jumping around. Calm down, Wani-chan. Riser looked at Seraphal speechlessly. How could you be so calm, Riser-chan? So-chan is going to fight, you know? So-chan is going to win, you know? So-chan is the cutest and the best. Seraphal was like a lump of excitement. It was impossible to calm her unless Riser gagged her mouth. Still, as she lashed her body into his, Riser really wondered whether this woman had ever thought about the kind of consequences that her actions would bring. Even though her body was petite, the enormous swelling on her chest was impossible to conceal. Moreover, those swellings squeezed tightly on his back, spreading the softness on his healthy body. Even worse, her plump, flexible legs were firmly wrapped around his waist as she leaned her chin on his shoulder. Her outrageous actions aside, Riser felt speechless at Ajuka and Falbium, who could face this situation calmly as they continued their conversation as usual. Don't be so confident, Seraphal. There are many powerful youth besides your little sister, too. Falbium calmly said. Yes, besides Sona, there would be many talented youth who would be participating in this gathering. I want to see the power of the boosted gear from Rias Peerage, Ajuka said with a smile. Riser stared at Ajuka and wondered whether this guy said those words deliberately. What about your little brother, Ajuka? Are you not interested in his performance? Yes, your little brother will be in this gathering, right? Are you not going to support him, Ajuka-chan? Seraphal asked curiously. I have been busy with many things, so I don't know much about him. Ajuka frankly admitted that he was unfamiliar with his little brother. Unlike the close relationship between Surzek and Rias or Sona and Seraphal, it seemed the relationship between Ajuka and his little brother wasn't that particularly close. You are so cold, Falbium commented. You can't blame me. My personality is like this, and having a little brother is different from having a little sister, and to be honest, he isn't that cute either. 3x. What could they say? However, Riser realized Ajuka was quite similar to him. The two of them didn't care about winning or losing, and they were rather cold for those who didn't care. Moreover, they also didn't care much about their position and only took it because there was no one else who could take this position except for them. To be honest, if Riser had been born earlier, they might have become friends, but he knew that it was impossible now, especially when Ajuka held a prejudice against him. In the end, whether they were a human, a devil, an angel, a fallen angel, or many others, as long as their feelings were involved, they would do something irrational. Still, I am afraid that Rias-chan will be bullied. Seraphal sighed, showing her concern. Unlike before, Rias was no longer the little sister of Lucifer. She was just the heiress of the Gremory house. This status wasn't bad, and it was above the majority, but compared to the youth that was invited to this gathering, her status was nothing. Among all of them, one was from the Baal house, the house of the great king, one was from the Agar's house, the Archduke of the Underworld, and the others were related to the great Mouths one after another. Being surrounded by many descendants of those giants, Ria's status was the lowest. She needs to handle this as the future of the Gremory house is in her hands, Falbium said calmly. Falbium is correct. Compared to the Cows Brigade and the many troubles that come after us after the death of God and Surzek, her problem is nothing, Ajuka added. Seraphal, Surzek doesn't wish us on anymore. While we can protect the Gremory house, can we protect it forever? Falbium asked. Riser looked at Ajuka and Falbium and thought that they were cold. However, he understood that unlike Seraphal, who was concerned about Rias, the two of them only cared about Surzek. The death of Surzek still shocked them, and instead of thinking about the Gremory house, they felt it was better to prepare for the enemy that had K***led Surzek. Wani-chan, Sona is there. You don't need to worry. Riser patted Seraphal's palm, telling her that everything was okay. Seraphal, who was frowning, felt at ease since she knew that Sona would protect Rias. There was no doubt in this gathering that Sona's status was above everyone's, especially when her older sister was Leviathan and her husband was Lucifer. With all of those statuses, no one dared to mess around with Sona. Still, suddenly, the door opened, and someone suddenly entered. Riser and Issei. The cheerful and happy voice was heard, but suddenly, this voice stuck when she saw all the people present. Eureka. Falbium looked at his niece, who was startled and scared. What's wrong? Uncle Falbium. Eureka Glagiolabelus sighed in relief when she saw her uncle. Eureka, wait for a moment. Ravel's voice was heard as she was chasing after Eureka, but then she was also stunned as she didn't expect to see Ajuka and Falbium in the same room as Riser and Seraphal. However, unlike Eureka, who was stunned, she quickly apologized. I am sorry for the rudeness, Beelzebub-sama, Asmodeus-sama. It's okay. Ajuka didn't care much. but Falbium was quite interested. Iriuka, are you close with Riser? Iriuka was stunned, but she nodded. I like Riser and I see. Falbium nodded, then looked at Riser with a thoughtful expression and suddenly thought of a good idea. Riser, how about marrying Iriuka too? Eh? Iriuka blushed, but Riser was speechless. Nuu. 2x. Before Riser said anything, Seraphal and Ravel rejected this idea without hesitation. Nevertheless, Riser glanced at Iriuka, who blushed and murmured in a low voice. But with his hearing, how could he miss it? Well, I don't really mind. As Seraphal and Ravel got angry, Iriuka lowered her head shyly. Riser sighed and thought that without Surzek, everything was so peaceful. Still, as everything was so peaceful in this room, all the youths who could participate in this event gathered in the hall in Riser's hotel room. All of them enjoyed the refined, exquisite architecture that they had never thought could be created in this world and relish. However, as expected, when all the youths were gathered, it was impossible for trouble not to occur. By *ch from the Gremory, what are you doing here? With your low status, it is amazing that you dared to enter this event without feeling embarrassed. Rias and her peerage members were furious as they saw a group of delinquents who looked at them condescendingly. Chapter 238. My promise for you. Mucho, are we going to the Phenex domain? Issei took a deep breath and tried to endure the mixed feelings of fear, nervousness, hatred, and even K*ling intent from his heart when he mentioned Riser. However, as expected, it was impossible for him to acknowledge Riser as the new Lucifer. In his mind, the only one who was suitable to become Lucifer was Surzek. There were no other devils that were more suitable than Surzek. Even if Surzek had passed away, why didn't the other devils choose the champion? Why did it have to be Riser? However, Issei didn't dare to say it out loud. He didn't want to die, so he could only endure everything. Still, how could Rias miss those mixed feelings from Issei? Issei was stupid, and it was impossible for him to be crafty by masking his emotions. Issei, I think I should leave. No, Bucho. Don't leave me. I will do well. I will be obedient and show respect to Lucifer-sama, so don't abandon me. Watching Issei, who begged, Rias sighed, feeling a little helpless. There was no way for Issei to leave Rias alone. No, he wouldn't let that happen. As her pawn, Issei vowed that he would protect Rias. The others didn't say anything, but to be honest, even if Rias had asked permission for Issei to follow to this gathering, they felt Issei should stay as they were afraid he might cause trouble. Surzek was no longer around them. Rias was just the heiress of the Gremory instead of the little sister of Lucifer, and she no longer had the power to protect Issei from the anger of Riser Lucifer. There are only two things that I want to ask you. Be quiet and lower your head. If you can't do that, then I will leave you. Yes. Issei nodded as he was happy that Rias would bring him to the gathering. As for the requirements asked by Rias, with his small brain, Issei had already forgotten. Or Issei simply forgot about it. Nevertheless, with this matter settled, everyone left for the gathering held at the Phenex domain. Asia, I leave Issei to you. Yes, Bucho-san. Asia nodded as she pulled Issei, holding his hand tightly, afraid that he might do something stupid. She knew that Rias had done her best to save Issei, but if Issei was still stupid, then even Rias was unable to do anything, so she knew she needed to do her best to stop Issei's stupidity. However, Asia didn't have confidence in Issei's brain, so she thought the best way to keep him safe was to say, Issei-san, no matter what, don't talk. Just keep quiet, okay? Still, Asia didn't feel relieved, so she looked at Gasper. Gasper-san, can you use your sacred gear to freeze Issei-san's time when he is about to say something? Eh? Gasper was startled, but he quickly nodded. Yes, Asia-senpai. Issei. Ignoring the two, Rias sighed as she felt worried, considering she had never heard anything from Riser after that day. The day she asked him permission for Issei, he no longer contacted her. She thought that he was busy and tried to understand it, but she realized that wasn't the case as she saw him going out with Aquino. Rias looked at Aquino, who sat quietly and asked in a low voice, Aquino, did you hear anything from Riser? Eh? Aquino was startled, but she shook her head. No, after our outing, we haven't met each other. This time, she lied as Riser told him to do so. Is that so? Rias sighed and looked at the scenery outside, hoping to erase her uneasiness. She wasn't sure whether Aquino was lying or not, but when she thought how busy Riser was, she decided to believe Aquino. However, her effort and self-deception were meaningless, especially when Riser didn't accept her meeting when he finished his match against Badizabaden. What's happening? Everything should go smoothly, but why did she feel Riser was so far away? However, she quickly cheered herself up, knowing she could meet him during this gathering. With the speed of the flying train, it didn't take long before they arrived at the Phenex domain. Unlike Aquino and Kaneko, the rest were quite nervous, as it would be their second time visiting the Phenex domain. However, unlike before, his status was much higher, and at the same time, their status was much lower. This is his domain. Issei was dumbfounded and unable to say a single word to describe how they were about to arrive at the Phenex domain. He might have come to this domain previously, but now, this domain has changed a lot, and it startled him. The beauty, charm, elegance, and exquisite architecture of this domain touched the hearts of everyone who saw it for the first time. Moreover, all the worries in their hearts disappeared, and there was one feeling that was born in their hearts. I want to live in this domain. Such a thought crossed everyone's mind as they saw the Phenex domain for the first time. Like others, Rias wasn't immune to this feeling, but her feelings were far deeper. I want him. This thought was like a loop, and she couldn't get it out of her head. So what if he had a wife? So what if Aquino was his woman? So what about his womanizer nature? Rias had made up her mind, and that was to make Riser into hers. Nevertheless, Rias' expression was seen by Issei once again. While he was entranced by the beauty of the architecture of the Phenex domain, he still had resistance and disgust as he knew the one who owned everything in this place was Riser Lucifer, the man that Issei hated the most. Yet, Issei knew. While Issei didn't want to admit it, he was nothing but just a pebble on the side of the street in front of Riser's eyes. If Rias hadn't helped him previously, even Issei would have been unable to participate in this gathering, as simply participating in this event was nothing but suicide. Nevertheless, as Issei looked at Rias, who seemed to be smitten and obsessed, he clenched his hands tightly. As expected, I can't forgive him. Those gazes, those gentleness, and, more importantly, those B***OSS. Everything should be his. Ucho, look at me. Yet, Issei didn't dare to say this feeling out loud. The trauma that he received from his first date with Yuma Amano or Rainier still remains. His feeling was clumsy, and at the same time, it was also a little scary as his obsession was blind, and he would do anything for Rias even if he had to throw away his life. However, when Issei thinks about Riser's position and power, he feels despair as he knows there is nothing he can do. Are you going to just give up, partner? Drake, you might not have the power now, but that doesn't mean you won't have it in the future. Also, are you just going to give up after working so hard? Are you alright by watching all the girls around you fall under his arms? Issei suddenly thought at how Rias, Aquino, Asia, and even Kaneko fell under Riser's arms, as they screamed in ecstasy as their bodies were conquered by him. Meanwhile, he could only watch from a distance and listen to their lewd cries, unable to do anything. Nuu. It was like a scene from a nightmare. However, as expected, you're not his opponent now, so endure. Endure it until you become strong enough, as only the strong can get everything. Endure. It was a simple thing. Issei took a deep breath and was going to endure everything until he was strong enough to retrieve everything that should be his. Bucho, I swear I will protect you. Issei vowed as he stared in a daze at Rias' beautiful crimson hair. Chapter 239, The One. Amazing. Is this really something that a devil can do? Probably, he is no longer a devil. Of course, he is our Lucifer-sama. Like the others who entered this resort city for the first time, they could only stay in a daze as they watched everything in fascination. It was the first time they saw something like this. Issei somehow felt that his existence was so small when he entered this hotel, but he quickly regained his confidence. I am the Red Dragon Emperor. I'm one of the strongest. So what if Riser was rich and above everyone? As long as Issei becomes the strongest, he believes that he can get everything. You are correct, partner. Only strength matters in the world of the supernatural. Yet, wasn't that also the reason why Drake died and sealed on the boosted gear? It was because Drake lacked the strength that his existence was reduced to a mere tool. However, whether the host or the heavenly dragon ignored such a problem and only wished to show their existence to this world. Moreover, Riser had to pay the price for the humiliation they had received. Today, they might be weak, and Riser might be strong, but soon, in the near future, they believed that they could become stronger. Surzek might have passed away, but his teaching remained deep in Issei's heart. Surzek-sama, I will also protect Bucho. Issei glanced at Rias, who calmly faced everything, falling into a daze due to her beauty, yet at the same time, he lowered his gaze to Rias B***OSS before showing a perverted laugh. Hee. Issei-koen. Issei-san. Issei-senpai. Kiba, Asia, and Gasper looked at Issei and sighed helplessly. They knew that Issei's expression was inappropriate, especially in this type of place and occasion, but they decided to let him go as this was far better than his usual act. Meanwhile, Rias just ignored Issei as it wasn't her first time being leered. She was beautiful, and it was normal for her to become the center of attention, attracting everyone's attention. To be honest, with her previous status, it wouldn't be weird to say she was the princess of the devil. Rias was above everyone. But now? Rias' heart was filled with jealousy as she observed the hotel, thinking that everything should be hers, yet due to her mistake, everything was taken away from her. Moreover, Sona. If Sona wasn't around then. Oi, who invited this bimbo to the party? This rude and full of mock voices directly attracted Rias and her peerage members' attention. Rias looked up and narrowed her eyes at the several figures who approached her. Zephyrdoor Glaciolabilis. A young man with black magic-like tattoos on his face, on his upper body, and green hair approached Rias with disdain. Like Rias, he wasn't alone as he was accompanied by his peerage members. However, unlike before, there was also a mix of women among his peerage members, but similarly, all of them dressed in delinquent styles. What are you doing here, Gremory? You shouldn't be at this event. Your status is lower than any of us. If it was before, Zephyrdoor might not dare to say all of this to Rias, but now? There was no doubt Rias' status was the lowest. Nevertheless, as a bully, Zephyrdoor had mastered the art of bullying. Even though he knew that Rias had a lower status than everyone in this place, there was something that could be done and couldn't be done, especially trying to Zuli harass her. It was a big no-no. His peerage members also understood that, so they just remained behind their master as they supported him. Rias' ex-fiancée was Riser, and it was also because of this that no one dared to approach her. She might be beautiful and XY, but no one in the Devil Society dared to approach her with the intention to court or marry after her divorce from Riser. Instead, everyone moved away, pulling away from her like a plague. It was also the same with Rias' peerage members, especially Rias' queen, who was the daughter of the leader of the Gregory. It was also because this Zephyrdoor only focused on Rias and her peerage members, except for Aquino. If it was before, Zephyrdoor might need to curry favor with Rias, but now? Zephyrdoor believed he was invincible in front of Rias. To be honest, I think you should go home instead of staying here, Rias. You bastard. Rias' temper had never been good. The moment someone dared to mock her, she would directly explode. Moreover, how dare this guy mock her family? How dare you say that, you doodle face? However, except for Rias, Issei was also angry and stood in front of everyone as he faced Zephyrdoor. To doodle face. Zephyrdoor was filled with rage. I will KL you for mocking me, you lowly slave. Nevertheless, facing the aura and anger emitted from Zephyrdoor, Issei didn't feel scared. As someone who had faced so many, including Riser and Seraphal, Zephyrdoor was nothing. However, before they were about to fight, someone stopped them. Oi, that naughty kid from the Glaciolabilis, you should stop with your boring provocation. Oh, Serorg? Does the trash from the Bale House want to order me? You should mind your own business. Facing Serorg, Zephyrdoor was fearless, especially when Serorg was nothing but trash without talent, a power of destruction, and even a demonic power. Instead, he grinned, showing a mocking smile. If you want to help your cousin, then go ahead. Facing the two trashes like you, I can do it alone. Oh, it seems that I need to teach you some lessons so you will know who you should provoke and who you should not provoke. Serorg was full of smiles, but the muscles on his body were already bulging, showing his fighting intent. Give him to me first, Serorg. I need to tell him the price for mocking the Gremory house. Rias didn't show mercy. Her face was gloomy, and her entire body emitted a powerful demonic power that could destroy everything. Stop talking. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Zephyrdoor didn't care about the two and kept provoking them. The argument between the three escalated, and they were on the verge of battle. Kaya. Due to the aura emitted from the three of them, Asia was slightly knocked, but her hands held her shoulders firmly, catching her so she wouldn't fall. Are you okay? A gentle voice. Asia turned and saw a handsome young man who looked so gentle as he looked at her worriedly. Oh, thank you. However, she wasn't smitten by his charm, as a face had never been something that attracted her, especially when she was so loyal to the pervert. Instead, she looked at Rias, Issei, and others worriedly as she knew the battle could break out any time. But stop. If you want to fight, then you should leave. Hearing this voice, everyone directly stopped, especially Zephyrdoor. I am sorry for the rudeness. I won't do it again. Zephyrdoor directly apologized to the figure who approached them. Sona Citri. Compared to Rias and Serorg, Zephyrdoor paid more attention and gave his highest respect to Sona, especially when she was the sister of Leviathan and the wife of Lucifer. Sona's status was above all of them. Zephyrdoor might be a bully, but he had mastered the art of the bully. Zephyrdoor's peerage members also followed and apologized to Sona before they left. Hey, wait a moment. Our fight isn't over. However, there was no way for Rias to let Zephyrdoor go, especially after he had mocked her. What do you want? By *ch. Zephyrdoor looked at Rias lazily. If you want to fight, then wait until the start of the gathering. Leaving those words, he didn't care whether Rias was angry or not. Wait. Rias. Sona. Rias frowned and asked, are you going to let me swallow this anger? If you are still angry at him, then you will have plenty of time to fight. However, don't fight here. I don't want you to destroy this place. That's true. Serorg also nodded. There is a lot of time for us to fight each other. Unlike Rias, he owed a lot of things to Riser, and he also didn't want to destroy Riser's hotel due to this small conflict. Rias swallowed the words that were about to come out from her lips. Yet, she bit her lower lip due to her frustration. Why? 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 Rias didn't care about the losers like Sarorg, who could swallow this anger, but at this moment, she didn't get angry at Zephyrdor. Instead, she was furious at Sona, who she felt like Sona had made her position above everyone else. Why was it you? Everything should be hers, yet now. It's time. Let's go. Sona left with her peerage members after saying those words. Sarorg also followed up since he also didn't want to be late. Ucho. Issei, who had calmed down, sighed in relief as there was no conflict and also reminded Rias that it was time, but somehow he shuddered at Rias' gaze. Let's go. Rias ignored Issei and walked, leading her peerage members toward the atrium where the main event of the gathering would start. Still, at this moment, the young man, who had been staring at Asia, smiled before he followed everyone. All the youths who gathered in this place would introduce themselves to every high echelon in the underworld. No one was nervous, and all of them were in high spirits as they knew they would start to enter the society soon. Please follow me. Following the guide, they walked toward the massive door, which would lead them to everyone. But the moment they entered, they were hit by an incredible aura that shook their souls, hearts, and beings as if they were lower beings. Facing the aura that conquered everyone, Rias looked up softly, staring at the source of this aura with obsession, thinking that he was the only one for her. Chapter 240, Humiliation. Villain. It was a SK*LL that Riser had previously received after he had taken down antagonist groups. This SK*LL might not have increased his power or made him powerful, but it gave him an aura of conqueror. The chosen one. Those words were probably suitable to describe his current aura. Riser hardly used this aura, he only used it in the fight, as it would make anyone who was weaker than him give up their will to fight as they knew their existence was lower than him. However, Riser used this SK*LL now, and he didn't hold back, considering he knew how insolent and reckless the young generation was. At that moment, everyone in this place and everyone in this city was hit by this aura. Those who revered him were the lucky ones as they became more obsessed with him, but those who felt that Riser wasn't suitable as Lucifer felt their hearts were crushed, and they felt they would die. Those who were weak could only lower their eyes as they bowed down toward him. Those with a certain strength could look at him, but all of them thought that they were just an insect in front of him. Nevertheless, Ajuka, Falbium, and Seraphal were dumbfounded. Seraphal was okay, as she knew Riser was amazing, but Ajuka and Falbium felt their hearts shaken. Still, Falbium quickly accepted everything as he knew that he wasn't that powerful, but Ajuka was different. Was Riser so strong? Ajuka was shocked. Although Ajuka had previously said that Riser's strength was comparable to Surzeka's, it was nothing but lip service as he wished to use Riser as a way to attract the attention of Vala, the K*ler of Surzek. However, Vali didn't move, making Ajuka annoyed, thinking that Vali was a coward. As for Riser's involvement with the K*ling of Surzek, Ajuka had never thought so. It was everything due to his prejudice that he wished to think so. After all, he knew how much Surzek hated Riser, and he just wished Riser would follow Surzek, who had entered the eternal darkness. Frankly, it might be a hasty decision to erase Riser's involvement with the death of Surzek, and more importantly, how could Riser K*LL Surzek? Not only was Riser in the underworld during what had happened, but Riser also had no ability to do anything to Surzek, who was far away. Lastly, Riser was still young. Even if Riser was powerful, there should be a limit to what kind of abilities he had learned. Based on his understanding, Ajuka knew that Riser's SK*LL focused on the Phoenix's ability, which was wind, fire, and immortality. Those abilities were the reason why Ajuka erased his doubt on Riser. Yet, it didn't change the fact that Ajuka wished to pull Riser into the whirlpool of this trouble as he wished to get his hands on Surzeka's K*ler. He was going to make Vali and those who were involved regret touching Surzek. However, Ajuka didn't expect Riser to grow to be this strong. This made Ajuka feel conflicted, and he knew making Riser follow Surzek to the eternal darkness wasn't as easy as he thought. Nevertheless, high echelons aside, the younger generation, who faced Riser's aura directly, was stunned in a place. Sona and Rias aside, Sarorg Bale, Zephyrdor Glagiolabalas, Seekvaria Agars, and Diodora Astaroth stood still as they were unable to move. Zephyrdor, Seekvaria, and Diodora quickly bowed down, showing their greatest respect toward him as their hearts were filled with fear, but Sarorg tried to hold on, yet unfortunately, it was only for a moment before he fell. Sarorg might be powerful, and he had trained his body to the limit, but as expected, there was still a limit. Facing Riser, who had grown stronger due to the system, everything was meaningless. Talent is only talent. If that talent hadn't grown and become powerful, they were nothing. However, when they become powerful, Riser won't feel afraid since he will become even stronger. Still, Riser had to say, he felt a bit disappointed in Sarorg since he didn't focus on his aura at Sarorg, yet Sarorg was unable to hold on. However, as expected of Serorg, even if he fell down, he didn't give up and kept trying to fight Riser's aura. Nevertheless, Riser had never focused on Serorg. Instead, he was staring at Issei. No, he focused on the existence inside Issei. There was no need to worry about Issei as he was nothing but a perverted boy. Except for his trained hands, he had no other redemptions. However, the existence inside him was different. The Red Dragon Emperor. Riser knew that as long as this giant lizard existed, the chance of Issei growing stronger was high. Still, to be honest, he didn't fear the Red Dragon Emperor. Even if this lizard was one of the reasons why God in the Bible passed away, he didn't fear it, especially when he owned the ruler. I know that God is dead due to 666, but the heavenly dragons are also part of the reason. All the attacks were meaningless to him, and it would make him stronger instead. Riser also read the record of the boosted gear, and according to that record, the stronger user was only SOSO. In the end, even if the boosted gear gave the power of that stupid lizard, those humans couldn't replicate its power. While it might give them the power to K*LL a god, there were many gods in this world, and many of them couldn't fight and weren't strong enough, so there was no need to fear it. Moreover, using his area of invisible, no one realized the gauntlets on his hands. Those gauntlets weren't his creation. Instead, it was something made by the power of Kote Kote no Mi. By using this ability, everything that he grabbed could be controlled. Riser could use Unknown Dictator and Star Blaster with the power of Kote Kote no Mi. While Riser hadn't tried this power of the Kote Kote no Mi on Longinus, he had confidence that he could use them. The system might give him powerful abilities, items, SK*LLS, and various others, but even without the system, there were still many ways for him to grow stronger. Still, Issei was naturally affected by Riser's aura, and he could only prostrate on the ground, showing his highest respect. While Drake was furious at his host who could fall so low, suddenly, he was hit by Riser's aura, too. At that moment, he felt his mind was being conquered, and he was forced to bow down like his host. Derg wanted to roar, yet he couldn't. It felt like space and everything in the world forced him to bow down. Drake was furious as a mere devil dared to appear so arrogant in front of him, yet at the same time, he was also in terror as Riser's power was stronger than he had imagined. How dare you? Yet, all of his resistance was futile, and like his host, Drake could only bow down in front of the overwhelming power. Even in front of his rival, the White Dragon Emperor, the god who had K** led him, and all the beings that Drake had provoked, it was the first time Drake received this humiliation. There was no fear. Only shame and anger were left, yet Drake could do nothing as a strange feeling that he had never felt before started to grow within his heart. As the heavenly dragon, Drake had never felt this feeling, and it was also because of this he was unfamiliar. Terror. If one could name it, this would be the name. Chapter 241. Youth Gathering. After Riser's exaggerated display of power, all the youths invited to this gathering introduced themselves. From Sona to Rias, everyone in this place introduced themselves in front of the high echelons of the underworld. Yet, the pressures of those individuals were nothing compared to Riser. In front of Riser, everything was meaningless after all. Still, when they introduced themselves, Riser reduced his aura, making them feel better, but even so, their hearts had already been conquered by him, and at this moment, he was above everyone. After all of them introduced themselves, Riser took over the lead of this event as he talked about the purpose of this gathering. You six are all devils of the next generation that have the pedigree and true ability that no objection can be raised against. That's why I want you to compete together before your debuts and increase your power this way. Yes, that was the purpose of this gathering. To have 6 exceptional youths have a rating game against each other. While Riser felt that it was a drag, it was a tradition for the young generation to compete with each other. Even Serafal, Ajuka, Surzek, and Falbium also fought each other during their youth. Riser was the same, but his opponents weren't exceptional, and he was already the best even though he was quite SOSO until he got his system. Still, even though Riser had conquered all of them with his aura, somehow someone was just too. Riser sighed as he looked at Serorg, who was about to talk. Will we also eventually be sent out in the battle against the Cow's Brigade? No. If it was Surzek, he would hesitate and would say, I don't know, and everything depended on the situation. However, in his case, Riser felt there was no need for them to face the Cow's Brigade. Why Lucifer-sama? Serorg expressed his dissatisfaction as he felt he was strong enough to face the Cow's Brigade. While he knew that he owed Riser a lot of things, as someone who was talentless, he wished to show his power to everyone. Serorg, watch your mouth. You were talking to Lucifer-sama. Do you think you can be so rude just because you are the young master of the Bale House? Many started to get angry at Serorg's rudeness, but Riser was calm and raised his hand to stop all of them. While he knew that they got angry so they could curry his favor, he wondered whether they tried to make his relationship with the Great King faction turn sour since they had made his position above the Great King. While Riser couldn't deny that it was the truth, he didn't really want to K**LL the Great King faction as they were good for him. Nevertheless, facing Serorg's rudeness, Riser didn't get angry. After all, who made Sarorg's mother have a relationship with him? Are you close with Sarorg's mother? Seraphal asked in a whisper. Riser decided to ignore Seraphal and said, Sarorg, I know that you are impatient to show your worth, but you are young. You will have plenty of chances to show your power to everyone. There is no need to be in a hurry, and let us protect you all until you grow, okay? Riser's voice was full of gentleness, which surprised many. After all, they never expected that Riser would be this gentle, but at the same time, this also reassured them. And they also agreed with his words, as it was their duty as the older generation to guide and protect the young generation instead of letting the younger generation fight and face all the villains. The original story. When Riser saw Sarorg was about to say something, he said, Sarorg, should I tell you how stubborn you were to your mother? Lucifer Sama. Sarorg looked at Riser helplessly. Facing his father, Sarorg didn't care, but facing his mother? For now, you should focus on this gathering as you will face the 5 of the youths who gather together with you. Or are you saying that you have never considered the 5 of them as your opponents? When Riser said this, Rias, Sona, Sikvaria, Diodora, and Zephyror stared at Sarorg with unkind gazes. Nevertheless, facing all their gazes, Sarorg didn't feel fear and confidently said, Yes, I believe that I am the best. You bastard. Every youth that was invited to this gathering cursed Sarorg's arrogance. If you are confident, then show it. If you really become the best, then I don't mind bringing you to face the Cows Brigade. Yes. Hearing Riser's confirmation, Sarorg nodded as he vowed that he would defeat the 5 youths. However, at the same time, all the youths vowed to defeat Sarorg. Riser then looked at the rest of the youths and said, As you can see, Sarorg believes that he is the best. What do you think? Lucifer Sama. He is just saying some nonsense. Without a demonic power, the power of destruction, he is simply a trash and a shame of the great king. Zephyror bravely shouted, showing his disdain towards Sarorg. Sarorg didn't say anything and only stared at Zephyror. Oh, you believe you can defeat Sarorg easily then, Zephyror? That's right. That's good. That's the spirit. To show you are the best among everyone. That's the purpose of this gathering. You can talk all you want, but only results will be appreciated and seen by everyone. Like me. As long as you show your worth, you can become a Lucifer. Or rather, if you win against me, you can even become the Lucifer. Everyone. Defeat you? Even if the youths were arrogant, no one thought they could defeat Riser. Still, Riser sighed helplessly as it seemed no one could take his job as Lucifer. It wasn't until Seraphal lightly bumped his arm that he said, So, give your all on this gathering. Yes. Everyone answered at the same time as they showed blazing fighting spirit. However, before we set up who is against whom, how about you talk about your future dreams? Riser looked at Sarorg and asked, Sarorg, how about we start with you? Yes. Sarorg stood in front of everyone as he talked about his dream. My dream is to become Mal. That's a good dream. It was impossible for Sarorg to become the head of the Bale House, especially when he lacked the power of destruction, but with his talent and physical ability, Riser knew that it was possible for Sarorg to become Mal. Even without his help, it was possible for Sarorg to become a Mal. Then, one by one, those youths expressed their dreams as the nobles that gathered at this gathering gave a comment or two as they talked to each other, and they felt a good feeling toward those youths. Those youths might be reckless and inexperienced, but wasn't that the reason why they were cute? Moreover, if they grew stronger, then there was no need for them to worry about the future of the Devil Society. My goal for the near future is to live as the next Gremory head and to win in each raiding game battle. Still, when it came to Rias, Riser had to say her dream was kind of modest, but he didn't say anything. However, when it came to the last, Sona, who was also his wife, everyone fell into silence. I wish to build a school for raiding game in the underworld. If it's learning about raiding game, isn't there already one for that, Sona-sama? One of the nobles asked curiously. Riser didn't feel surprised by the confusion by the majority, as not everyone learned about his agreement with Zekrom Bale to allow Sona to build a raiding game for her. That is a school where only high-class devils and evils of privileged rank are accepted. The school that I want to build is one where low-class devils and reincarnated devils can also attend without any distinction. Everyone fell in silence for a moment before they nodded without saying their disdain towards such a school. Sona was the wife of Riser, so no one dared to laugh at her dream even though they knew her school was nothing but meaningless, especially when those low-class devils and reincarnated devils would only become middle-class at best, no matter how much they struggled. This wasn't some kind of nonsense. After all, the society of the devil was like this, and everything was determined by pedigree. Naturally, there was an exception, but such a chance only happened among one in the millions. In conclusion, Sona's dream was ridiculous, but no one laughed as Sona was Lucifer's wife and Leviathan's little sister. Instead, everyone was looking at Riser. Riser was about to clap his hands and express his support toward his wife, but Sona-chan, you should know how ridiculous your dream is, right? Oi. Riser frowned at Seraphal, saying that she was too much. Let me talk, Riser-chan. Seraphal was calm, and her expression differed from her usual as she gazed into her little sister. Sona-chan should know the reason why no one laughs at your dream is because of Riser-chan, who had been working hard behind the scenes, gaining permission from Zekrom-sama himself. Without Riser-chan, your dream is nothing but a pipe dream. Riser wanted to say something, but in the end, he stopped when he saw Seraphal's expression. If it were others, he might KL them directly, as Sona was his wife. Whatever her whim was, it didn't matter, and even if she did something stupid, he was the only one who could reprimand and get angry at her as she was his wife. Still, except for him, Serafal also had such a privilege, and Riser also knew that there was something that he couldn't talk about, especially when he was Sona's husband. Sona looked at her older sister as she widened her eyes in surprise since she didn't expect Serafal to say something like that. So-chan, everything you receive now is a privilege that comes from Riser-chan and me, so don't embarrass the two of us and do something half-assed, okay? Yes. Sona knew that the reason why no one laughed at her dream was because of Riser, and because of that, she needed to do her best so she wouldn't embarrass him. Yet, watching this exchange, Rias frowned, feeling jealous, so when everything was over, she took the initiative. Lucifer-sama, can you let me be Sona's first opponent? Everyone was startled by Rias' words, but hearing Rias' brazenness, the majority of them sneered. Little girl, you should watch your mouth. Your brother might be the former Lucifer, but he is no longer one. How dare you talk like that? Rias was stunned by everyone's reaction, as she hadn't expected this reaction. Watching this, Rias' peerage members were also startled, but Issei quickly got angry. Watching this, Asia and the others quickly reacted, quickly trying to Issei, but it was too late. You bastard! How dare you laugh at Bucho? Everyone. Chapter 242. Why? Watching his master being bullied by so many people, how could Issei stay calm? But, how dare you talk to us like that, you lowly slave? Watch your mouth. Rias Gremory Dano, can you not even discipline your servants? K*LLM. There was no trace of mercy in the mouths of all the nobles who participated in this gathering. Surzek was no longer living, and the Gremory was nothing but a noble family with SOSO status. Even though the status of the Gremory had risen due to Surzek becoming Lucifer, all of those heritages had almost disappeared, being taken by everyone as the Gremory family didn't have the power to protect those heritages. More importantly, previously, the relationship between Riser and Surzek was as good as an enemy, so as long as there was a chance, they would bully Rias in the Gremory house to please their new Lucifer, Riser. Even worse, Grafia Lucifage also couldn't be found anywhere. Still, watching the anger of the nobles, Sona wanted to do something, stopping them as she also wished to have a battle against Rias, but Issei's outburst changed everything, causing the situation to turn worse, which made her frown. Idiot. Sona thought so when she watched Issei. Not only Sona but everyone thought so as they thought that Issei had never changed. Issei's brain was as small as his genital, so it was easy for him to forget the consequences he received for doing this disrespectful act. As expected, Issei didn't understand his situation and was about to provoke everyone again. But slap. He felt a burning pain in his cheek. Issei grimaced in pain as he looked at the person who had slapped him with disbelief and annoyance, but when he saw Rias' expression, he was stunned still. How long are you going to shame me? Rias knew that the situation could be solved easily and those clowns would shut up soon, especially when she knew that Riser definitely wouldn't let her be bullied. She knew that Riser would do something for her, yet Issei's reaction changed everything. Like before, nothing had changed. Issei was as stupid as before. Rias cried as she regretted bringing Issei and asked Riser permission to bring Issei as she knew everything was messed up because of this pervert. Issei couldn't say anything. Watching his beloved master cry in front of him, Issei didn't know what to do and was confused. He also felt that his heart was crushed, but at the same time, he was angry. Was it because of everyone? Bucho, you don't need to worry. Issei was about to face everyone again, telling them that he was going to make everyone feel regret for making his Bucho, but suddenly, his entire body was frozen still. Huffed. 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 Gasper used his sacred gear to stop around Issei as he gasped for air, feeling extremely nervous being stared at by so many, but he endured it as he knew the stupid thing that Issei had done. He might be a shut-in, but he wasn't an idiot. Moreover, Kiba and Asia also started to move by dragging Issei behind them as they held his mouth. Lastly, Rias also quickly entered her act and apologized. I apologize for the rudeness of my servant, Lucifer-sama. As for the others, she didn't care. Those nobles who were being invited were angry by Rias' ignorance toward them, but a similar pressure came once again, bringing despair to everyone. Don't be noisy. Riser's voice was at ease and relaxed, but it brought so much impact to everyone. It's nothing but healthy competition among the youngsters. There's no need for us to get involved, okay? Riser knew that they were angry with him, but there was still a limit. Nevertheless, he had to say that even if they might seem like they had done something too much, they were quite useful, especially against those fools who thought they were better than anyone, without realizing that they were just ants that could be crushed anytime. Like the stupid current generation of boosted gear. Yes. All of them answered at the same time, showing their greatest respect toward Riser. Rias, bring your servant out. Yes, Lucifer-sama. Rias bowed her head. Thank you for your mercy. I will discipline him so he won't show disrespect again. She then looked at Asia, Kiba, and Gasper, telling them to bring Issei out, to which they agreed, and they quickly left. Riser didn't take Rias' words to his heart as he knew how stupid Issei was. Even if Rias had disciplined Issei, it would mean nothing. Sona, are you okay with it? Still, Riser didn't reject Rias' initiative to challenge Sona as this was something he wished to do, especially when it was also his chance to shame this woman. Yes, let me fight him, dear. Sona answered without hesitation as she also wished to compete against Riser, who was also a rival. Unlike others who treated Rias differently after the death of Surzak, she wasn't such a person. Nevertheless, she was glad that her husband could help Rias, and at the same time, she loved him so much and would show that she was someone who was fit to become his wife. Do your best then. Riser smiled as he encouraged his wife. Sikveria looked at Riser, then looked at Sona. Somehow, she felt quite jealous. Still, compared to Sikveria, Rias' reaction was even more intense. Watching this exchange and watching how Riser ignored her, focusing all of his attention on Sona, Rias' jealousy became even stronger, and her regret became heavier as if something stuck within her chest that it made her unable to breathe. So on her rating game, she was determined, and she was going to show who was better between her and Sona. Aquino and Kaneko, who had been standing behind Rias, watched their master worriedly. To be honest, even if there was so much conflict before, they knew that they would be all right. But Rias? They didn't have confidence, especially when they knew how Riser's temper, but with the time they spent with Rias, even if what she did was nothing but just an order from her older brother and everything was probably just a drama set by her older brother, they still cared about Rias. Moreover, Surzak had died. That's it. Fortunately, nothing had happened. Everything ended well as the first match of the 6 youths had been decided. Sikveria would face Diodora. Sarorg would face Sephardor. Sona would face Rias. Those matches would be held a month later, and everyone would be given time to prepare themselves to bring their best state. Moreover, there would be important guests from different myths that would come to watch their match. Lastly, before the match, 20 days later, there would be another gathering. With all of that, everything ended, and this gathering finished. Riser also decided to leave as he prepared to train his wife and her peerage members. However, Rias was praying. She was praying for him to say something, encouraging her, supporting her, at this moment when she needed someone the most. Still, even if he just glanced and smiled in her direction, she would be satisfied, but she had to leave in disappointment. Watching him leave without even saying a single word to her, she was on the verge of crying, wondering why he wouldn't look in her direction. Chapter 243, Wish. It's training arc. It's training arc. When the gathering ended, Riser left with everyone, and as expected, Seraphal followed. Yet the sentence that came out of Seraphal's mouth stunned everyone. Still, no one dared to say anything, especially when Seraphal was the Leviathan. Except for Riser, Sona, and Ravel, everyone could only stay in silence. However, facing Seraphal's antics, the 3 of them could only stare at this woman in silence. No, it could be said that only Sona and Ravel were the ones who could stare at Seraphal in silence as Seraphal stuck on his back. So Riser couldn't stare at Seraphal even if he wanted to. However, Riser could feel Seraphal's healthy breast size, so there was no need to worry, right? However, One-chan is correct. This month, I will train you and your peerage members, Sona. Eh? Everyone was surprised by his words. But, is it really okay, dear? While Sona wished to be trained by Riser, she wondered whether she would trouble him. It's okay. Even if I skip my work for a month, no one will say anything. Hearing his brazen words, no one knew what they should say. That's great. However, Zenobia was happy that she could spend more time with Riser. They looked at this idiotic girl. They wanted to say something, but they endured it. After all, even if Zenobia was a little silly, she was still Riser's woman. Riser rubbed Zenovia's head and watched her silly smile. He became worried about their future children. Still, he suddenly noticed a gaze from the side. He turned and saw the woman who stared at him, quickly lowering her head as if she didn't want him to notice. Sabaki didn't dare to meet his eyes as she was nervous and afraid to show her emotion, but suddenly, she felt a warm hand gently rub her hair. This action gave her courage, and she looked up, watching his warm smile, causing her to fall once again. Like Zenovia, she also showed a silly smile. Watching Sabaki, Riser realized that he might not have taken care of her that much, but he was extremely busy, especially with many things happening to him. Moreover, his peerage members also worked together, so all of his attention would be on them all the time. For them, Riser, who had become Lucifer, was like the burning flame in the middle of the dark. In this darkness where nothing could be seen, he was the single guide that gave everyone hope. This hope was like an attraction to them, and they definitely wouldn't be the only ones that were attracted to him. As long as there was no Sona, they would try to seduce him. Nevertheless, sometimes, they wondered whether they lacked a charm since Riser didn't jump toward them all like a beast in heat, but they also understood that as he had become Lucifer, there was something that he needed to do. And they also weren't in a hurry as a devil they lived a long life. However, what they didn't know was that in those times, Riser spent his time with Ravel, but this wasn't something that he could talk about. Moreover, there was something that Riser needed to do first. First, except for Saji, Zenobia, and Tsubaki. Riser looked at the rest of Sona's peerage members except those he mentioned. Momo Hanakai, Rei Kasaka, Tomo Meguri, Tsubasa Yura, and Ruruko Nimura suddenly became nervous. Watching those 5 girls, Riser wondered why Sona chose them, as there wasn't anything special about them, especially Momo and Ruruko, who were just normal humans without even a sacred gear, but since they were his wife's peerage members, he would help them. I have prepared something for all of you. Something? 5x. What did you prepare for them, Riser-chan? Not only the 5 girls, but even Sarah Fall asked curiously. Probably many might have guessed that my peerage members are using something similar to sacred gears, or they might even mistake it as sacred gears. Everyone nodded as they saw Riser's rating game, and how his peerage members showed an exceptional performance by using various tools that made them stronger. Many of them thought that they used sacred gear, and they didn't feel surprised as they thought Riser used the method from the fallen angel to rob the sacred gears from their hosts. Yet, no one said anything, and they felt that it was okay as Riser only took the sacred gear from a human. Even if Riser K** led those humans, no one said anything, as a human was nothing but livestock for the devils. While some might have a different view, the supernatural world was the world where the strong got everything and the weak were eaten. So, those who died because their sacred gear was taken by Riser could only blame their luck for being targeted by the strongest devil, but they're not. Sona asked. No. Riser shook his head. They're not sacred gear, but a tool that I have crafted. You can call it mocking gear. Everyone. Riser looked at the 5 girls again and said, and I have prepared 5 mocking gears for the 5 of you. Really? Nimura asked excitedly. Yes. Riser nodded. So, during this month, I hope that you can learn those items well and become stronger. Yes, Riser-sama. 5x. Hearing his words, those 5 girls became excited as they also wished to become stronger. Still, Zenobia, Saji, Tsubaki, and even Sona became slightly envious. It's not fair. Riser-chan, I want mocking gear, too. Seraphal pouted, moving around on his back, acting like a spoiled child. Riser somehow wanted to throw this woman away, but when he felt her breasts, he decided to ignore her. He wanted to talk about something again, but Riser, this familiar voice. Everyone turned and saw someone they had expected. Rias came with Kaneko and Akino, walking toward him. She gave her best smile as she was happy that she could catch him up, but at the same time, she was also nervous as she was afraid of being ignored by him. Riser didn't look at Rias but looked at Sona as he felt Sona's gaze. Facing her husband's gaze, Sona then looked away, staring at Rias. What's wrong, Rias? Rias glanced at Sona for a moment before continuing her focus on Riser, but he didn't say anything, which caused her to be even more nervous. Lucifer-sama, can I talk with you? This time, Riser turned and looked at Rias. Her eyes were reddened, seemingly on the verge of tears, showing an extremely pitiful expression. If it was others, they would directly ask what was happening as they tried to make her happy, but he didn't care, and his heart wasn't even moved by her expression. Is there something that you want to ask, Rias Gremory? Everyone looked at Riser at the same time, wondering why there seemed to be a gap between him and Rias, but to be honest, it was hard to ask Rias such a question. Rias opened her lips, closing them, before biting her lower lip in frustration, but she bowed her head and pleaded, Can you train my rook, Kaneko Tuja? I know my request might be brazen, but you are the only one I can seek. Riser didn't immediately answer and looked at Akino, who showed a smile, then looked at Kaneko, who was nervous but peeked at him from time to time. Sure. Thank you, Lucifer-sama. Rias was happy. Please visit my... Come on, Kaneko. Follow me. Before Rias finished her words, Riser had already left. Everyone looked at each other before they followed Riser, but Sona didn't leave immediately and said, Train hard, Rias. I won't lose to you since you are a rival that I have acknowledged. Yes, I definitely won't lose to you either, Sona. Rias tried to endure her anger as she answered Sona's challenge calmly. The two smiled at each other like how their relationship used to be, even though they knew their relationship had changed. However, Kaneko wondered what she should do as her eyes kept moving toward Riser and Rias. Go follow Lucifer-sama, Kaneko. Rias calmly said, Don't waste your chance and become stronger, okay? Yes, Rias-sama. Hearing those words, Kaneko bowed her head before quickly following Riser so she wouldn't be left behind. She joined Sona's group as they were familiar. When they left, Akino looked at Rias and wanted to ask about her condition, but she stopped the words from her mouth and sighed. She took off her handkerchief and wiped Rias' tears. Don't cry, Rias. Rias then looked at Akino and asked, Akino, just what should I do? Akino couldn't answer that question and just hugged Rias. For now, we should focus on our rating game. Let's win, okay? She might not know what kind of answer she should give to Rias, but she knew they should focus on their rating game. Yes. Rias nodded and knew that she had to win this rating game, so that way he would look in her direction and show that warm smile again. Chapter 244, Training Arc 1. When they left the gathering, they quickly went to his villa, preparing for Sona's and her peerage members' training. During this time, no one mentioned Rias, but they talked about what Riser was going to do with Kaneko. I will let Issei and Lee train her. Issei and Lee. Even if they were just pawns with one piece of evil piece, there was no doubt they had become the strongest reincarnated Nekashu. After their training with Magari, the leader of Nikomata, Eight-Tailed Nikomata, who was part of the East Yukai faction, they had become stronger. Moreover, their tails had increased to 3, and they were about to grow 4 tails. There was no doubt that there was no suitable person to teach Kaneko other than Issei and Lee. While Riser could teach Kaneko, he wanted to focus on Sona and her peerage members, especially when Kaneko was part of Rias' peerage, who also happened to be Sona's first opponent in this rating game gathering. Leaving Kaneko with Issei and Lee, Riser brought Sona along with her peerage members to the training room in his villa. Naturally, Seraphal didn't miss this chance and also followed as she wondered what Riser was going to do. However, give me your body sizes. Everyone. Didn't you know already, Riser-sama? Zenovia asked in doubt. Riser. Everyone. Riser's lips twitched as Zenovia was correct. With his mathematic mastery, it was possible for him to know everyone's sizes with just a moment of glance, but wasn't that creepy? If he suddenly knew their sizes, what would they think in their hearts? While I know that you won't do something strange with them, can I ask what you are going to do with everyone's sizes? Sona asked calmly as she pushed the frame of her glasses. Do you know who you need to watch out for when you have rating game with Rias? Riser asked. Rias. Hearing Sona's answer, everyone nodded as there was no doubt Rias was the strongest. No, it's that perverted dragon? Why? Everyone became confused by Riser's answer. Is it because of the boosted gear? Sona asked with a frown, but she couldn't make the connection between the boosted gear and their sizes. No. Riser shook his head. The boosted gear isn't something that you need to be wary of. This Longinus might be powerful, but its user is trash, so there is no need to worry. But even if the user is trash, you need to watch him out. Sona quickly realized something. Don't tell me. What? What is it? Seraphal asked curiously. Yes, it's his dress break that you need to watch out for. Riser nodded. Everyone fell into silence, and their expression turned into worry when they heard Riser's answer. Dress break. While they didn't want to know, it was impossible for them not to know, especially when this technique was so perverted. The first match between Rias and Riser wasn't a secret, and it was something that Sona and her peerage members had watched previously. Honestly, the one-sided match wasn't something they remembered the most. Instead, it was Issei's perverted technique where he stripped the clothes of his opponents, something that they remembered the most. Even Zenovia was familiar with this technique and also showed a frown of disgust. I will create a uniform for all of you, so this technique won't work for you. Thank you very much. All of them thanked Riser at the same time. After all, who wanted to get naked because of Issei? Still, his pervertness is something that you need to watch out for, so you need to be careful. Oh really? Even Saji was flabbergasted, wondering how such a pervert could become a dangerous element in their first rating game. Don't let your guard down, Saji. Give everything to you to fight him. If you lose, you will shame everyone. Yes, Riser-sama. Sona might be Riser's wife, but even so, as a member of her pawn, Saji wished to show his best. Sona thought for a moment and asked, I'm just curious. How dangerous will this pervert become? Riser thought for a moment and explained. The boosted gear aside, his technique will revolve around something that is related to his perverted desire, so based on his first technique, which is dress break, I can imagine that he will create another pervert technique, such as air, a technique that makes him able to talk with breasts, getting stronger by touching breasts, or using breasts as a communication tool. Riser wasn't sure, but he felt that Issei should be able to create such a technique. They opened their mouths before they closed them again. You don't need to worry. This uniform is something that I will prepare for you to counter all of his perverted techniques. Hearing his words, everyone felt relief. Saji, go away, turn, and close your ears. Sona quickly gave an order to Saji before everyone exposed their sizes to Riser. Saji was speechless, but he followed Sona's words, walking a few kilometers away until he was called again. Still, when he returned, he saw everyone had blushes on their faces, which made him sigh helplessly. Recording all the female members' sizes on his note, Riser then looked at Saji and asked, Saji, what's your size? I will prepare a uniform for you. Ah, yes, Riser-sama. Saji quickly reported his size to Riser as he also wished for a new uniform prepared by Riser. As Riser made a note, Zenovia suddenly asked, Riser-sama, are we not going to have a mocking gear like everyone else? The we she mentioned were herself, Tsubaki, Saji, and Sona. While Riser hadn't shown what kind of mocking gears he would give everyone else except for them, she knew they would be amazing, and naturally, she also wished to have one. There is a technique that I want you to master, but let's see. I guess you were right. I will lend you something later. Riser felt that while Zenovia had a Durandal, that wasn't enough as the holy sword was only a sword, and it wouldn't be a problem if he gave her something else, and he got something perfect for her who had a muscle for the brain. Yes. Still, hearing Zenovia's cheers, Tsubaki, Saji, and Sona also stared at Riser, hoping they got the mocking gear. As for Serafal, Riser directly ignored Serafal and then looked at Tsubaki, Saji, and Sona. I know that you also wish for something similar, but unlike them, Tsubaki and Saji, you have sacred gears. You two should focus on mastering those powers instead of using the mocking gears. Whether it's Tsubaki or Saji, they had limitless potential, especially when they were sacred gear users. Moreover, their sacred gears weren't weak, especially when Tsubaki held a hidden power inside her body, and Saji's sacred gear was a dragon type. While Riser knew that giving them a mocking gear could make them stronger, he wished for them to master the power that they had over themselves. Moreover, if they reached their limit, then it wouldn't be too late for him to give them a new power, right? As for his wife, Sona, you should also master the power of Citri House first. I will train you personally later. Yes. Sona never felt worried as she knew her husband knew the best of her, but at the same time, she wondered how he was going to train her. Watching Sona, who suddenly blushed, Riser rolled his eyes to the sky before he coughed and said, Now, during this month, I hope that you can focus and give your all right? Yes. Given their firm answer, they were prepared for this training arc. Chapter 245, Training Arc 2. When their training started, Riser didn't waste his time and took out all the mocking gear that he had prepared for the 5 girls. Ruruko, come here. Yes. The slender girl with twin tails quickly walked toward Riser excitedly. Riser then took out a handsome pair of dual-wielding, knuckle knife-style trench knives. This is. Ruruko fell in love instantly with this weapon. Twin Turbo. This is your mocking gear. Everyone. Twin Turbo? As Ruruko held her new mocking gear, she was stunned by the name of her new weapon. Riser ignored their reaction and told the effect of Ruruko's mocking gear. It'll increase your speed, and it is extremely sharp. As long as you train harder, you should be able to cut mostly anything. Really? Yes, and... Riser looked at Ruruko, who held her new weapon, and asked, Don't you feel that you can move your shoulders better? Eh? When Riser reminded her, Ruruko realized that her shoulders seemed able to rotate, making her able to move her fists so fast that they could create an afterimage. Moreover, she could tell that her speed increased even further that she could create a copy of herself, which dumbfounded and amazed her. Well, I will give you data on how you should train. Stop for a moment. Riser didn't feel surprised by her reaction, but he didn't want to waste his time, so he used Archive to transfer the knowledge of how Ruruko was going to train from now on. Stopping in place, Ruruko saw a loading bar above her head, and suddenly, she realized information about how to use her mocking gear entered her brain smoothly. Wow. Everyone. Sona and Serafal were dumbfounded. Dear, what is that? That's Oni-Isama's magic. Archive. Ravel happily explained how awesome Riser was. Hearing Ravel's explanation, everyone fell into silence. Sona and Serafal realized that Riser had become so much stronger. Yet, Sona had to say Archive was such a convenient magic, and if possible, she wished to learn it. After all, if she could just transfer all the ideas and strategies she thought onto the heads of others directly instead of explaining them to others. Still, Sona knew that this magic wouldn't be easy to learn, and she also needed to focus on making herself stronger instead of focusing on this magic as her first rating game would be held in a month. So she didn't say anything and watched another Mocking Gears explanation. Momo, come here. Yes, Riser-sama. Momo Hanakai approached Riser. While she tried to calm herself, there was no doubt she was also so excited inwardly. Riser didn't waste his time and took out a purple orb. This is your Mocking Gear, Black Caviar. Momo fell in silence. Was it because it had an orb shape that it was named Caviar? However, why was it called black, even though it had a purple color? Momo didn't know, but she just fell silent and buried her questions deeply in her heart as she listened to the ability of her Mocking Gear. The ability is to create an illusion. It has limitless potential, depending on how you plan to use it. I will give you several examples of how to use it, but you can use your own idea of how to use it later. Thank you, Riser-sama. Even though the name of her Mocking Gear was weird, Momo had to say its ability was incredible. Rhea, you are next. Yes, Riser-sama. Rhea quietly answered but briskly approached Riser. Riser then took out multiple floating small satellites out of nowhere. This is your Mocking Gear, fair play. Rina had prepared for the unique name of her Mocking Gear, but she had to say the name of her Mocking Gear was better than Momo and Ruruko. Momo and Ruruko somehow felt slightly jealous. This mocking gear has the ability to monitor like a satellite and also fire a powerful beam. Whether it is for scouts, sneak attacks, or even long-range attacks, this is versatile mocking gear, so learn it well. Yes, Riser-sama. Rhea smiled sweetly as she controlled several floating small satellites around her, trying to master them as soon as possible. Tomo. Yes, Riser-sama. Before Riser even finished his words, Tomo had already approached him. She clenched her fists, seemingly ready to receive anything, and strangely enough, her face was full of expectation. You were so excited. Yes, Riser-sama. Tomo couldn't tell Riser that she wondered what kind of name he would give her mocking gear instead of what type of weapon she would receive. As you are a swordsman, I will give you a sword-shaped mocking gear. Riser took out a katana shape of mocking gear. Sona told me that you were using a katana, so I made the shape into a katana. Thank you, Riser-sama. Tomo smiled, but then she asked, what's the name of this mocking gear, Riser-sama? Everyone perked their ears, and they listened curiously. Riser wanted to explain the power of this mocking gear, but why did it feel like they were more interested in the name of his mocking gear? Well, whatever. The name of this mocking gear is Native Dancer. Non-native dancer? Tomo looked at her katana-shaped mocking gear, wondering why its name was Native Dancer, but she didn't dare to ask. Others weren't much better, but they kept their mouths shut as Riser explained the power of the Native Dancer. Besides increasing your speed, it is also extremely sharp, and those who are wounded by this mocking gear will move in the opposite manner of their will. Eh? What do you mean, Riser-sama? Tomo was surprised. Try to make a small wound on your finger so you will learn it faster. Well, while Tomo was a bit nervous and hesitated, she decided to try it as Riser made a small wound on her finger, but then, when she was about to move forward, she suddenly moved back. When she moved right, she moved to the left. Suddenly, she felt confused, and everything became so weird before everything returned to normal. She felt this weapon was incredible before plopping to the ground due to the after effect. Are you all right, Tomo? Everyone looked at Tomo strangely and asked her worriedly since they felt like she was drunk. What do you think? It's amazing. As long as someone was wounded by this sword, their fate was over. Tomo quickly held her mocking gear happily, but she wasn't the last one. Yura, you were next. Yura, who had been waiting, walked toward Riser with an excited smile, but Serafal quickly asked, Riser-chan. Riser-chan, what's the name of Yura-chan's mocking gear? Why were you interested in the name of the mocking gear instead of the effect? However, Riser was too lazy to ask and took out a large gauntlet with bladed fingers. Everyone sucked a deep breath as Yura's mocking gear had the most impact among all the mocking gears which he had shown to all of them. This is your mocking gear, King Kamehameha. Yura. Everyone. Yura wanted to complain, but she didn't dare and could only endure it as she muttered quietly, King Kamehameha. Everyone looked at Yura and felt sorry for her, while at the same time, they were glad that their mocking gears had a normal name. I was joking. Riser sighed helplessly inwardly, wondering whether King Kamehameha wasn't a good name. Really? Yura's eyes lit up. Yes. Yura sighed in relief when she heard it. Riser thought for a moment and said, Maximum Security. That's the name of this mocking gear. Maximum Security. There was no doubt Maximum Security was several times better than King Kamehameha. It has the ability to make you stronger, faster, and regenerate when you are hurt. It can also store and reflect back on any attack that the opponent landed on the user. Everyone was in a daze as there was no doubt this mocking gear was a perfect weapon for those close combat fighters. Whether Zenovia or Saji, they also wished to have something similar. Like the sacred gear, the mocking gear will also grow stronger along with you. As you train harder, it will answer you, and make you stronger, too, so don't be lazy. Yes, all of those mocking gears were created by using the abilities within his body. Moreover, all the developments they made with the mocking gears could be received by him. In other words, the stronger they became, the stronger Riser became. Riser used all of the individuals he connected with to develop his abilities by creating the mocking gear. Moreover, all the information on the development of the mocking gear would be transmitted to him, so he could replicate their feats anytime. If he gave an example, it was like an MLM or a pyramid with him on top of everyone, gaining everything. Yet, it wasn't that he was using them as he also gave them power. Everything was fair. Still, this wasn't the end, as there were still many of them who were waiting for him to train them. Chapter 246, Training Arc 3. While Riser had given the 5 girls their mocking gears, it didn't mean that it was the end. He also gave them a variety of techniques that they needed to learn, especially everything that related to movement technique. Whether one was a close combatant, long-range combatant, wizard, trapper, or any other, while their way of the fight might be different, their way of running away was similar. Yes, running away. Why should one fight a bloody fight like a warrior when one could K*LL someone with just one hit? If they couldn't defeat their enemies in one hit, why should they press further and keep fighting instead of retreating for a moment? searching for another chance by harassing their opponents, draining their stamina until they couldn't do anything? While in front of overwhelming power, nothing could be done. Ria's power of destruction was amazing, and nothing could be done when one was hit by it. However, no matter how strong Ria's attack was, if her attack couldn't hit them, then it was meaningless, right? That was why he gave them training in movement technique. While 1 month might seem short, it should be enough to increase their power to an okay level. Riser might have given them the mocking gear, and due to this, their power should have increased dramatically, but expecting them to master those weapons in 1 month was too much. After all, they weren't the main characters or the friends of the main characters who could suddenly master a strange power within their bodies. Instead, those 5 girls' status in the story was only SOSO, and their backstory was normal. There was no drama. There was no trouble. Everything happened so smoothly, and they became the devil because they wished so. If Riser had to give an example, they were like his peerage members. They might not be weak, but they didn't have much potential, and that was why he gave them a boost with a variety of weapons, SK*LLS, and mindsets. Giving them a variety of information, Riser could feel Sona's intense gaze on him, especially on the loading bar of the archive magic, which was something that definitely helped her with many things. Archiver might not be the strongest magic, but there was no doubt it was extremely useful. Teaching them for a moment, Riser then called the 2 knights. Zenobia, Tomo, come here. Zenobia and Tomo moved toward him obediently like they were trained to do so. You two are swordsmen, so I will give you a suitable technique to learn. Riser-sama, are you also a swordman? Tomo was surprised. Tomo, Riser-sama's swordsmanship is amazing. My swordsmanship is taught by him. Previously, her swordsmanship style was wild, and Zenobia moved based on her instinct, but with Riser's teaching, her swordsmanship became stronger, sharper, and more dangerous. While Zenobia didn't want to talk badly about her previous home, she knew the sword technique taught by the church was like a kindergarten lesson compared to Riser's swordsmanship. Huh? Really? Tomo sometimes had a spar with Zenobia, so she knew how strong Zenobia was, but she didn't expect that Zenobia was taught by Riser. Was this the benefit of becoming his woman? Tomo had to say she was jealous. But Riser-sama, I have mastered some of your sword techniques, right? Are you going to teach me another technique? Zenobia asked curiously. Yes. Riser nodded. The name of this sword style is breathing technique. Breathing technique? Not only the 2 knights but everyone who listened was surprised. By combining the Western and the Eastern swordsmanship, I have developed a new sword technique, and the name of this technique is breathing style. Moreover, by using this sword technique, you can become stronger and faster. Still, as Riser said all of that nonsense, he could see that everyone believed him. Previously, he got sun breathing from the system, and with sword talent, which he also gained previously, he developed a variety of breathing styles, which were more suitable for others. As for why he developed other breathing styles, it was all because of his 2 knights. He wanted his 2 knights to learn the sun breathing, but it seemed they didn't have the talent to do it, so he changed it into another, and they could do it. Riser could see whether Zenobia and Tomo were quite similar, so he also taught them a different breathing style. As he explained, Riser said, Zenobia, you will learn flame breathing, and Tomo, you will learn thunder breathing. I will send all the data into your head. Be prepared. Zenobia and Tomo were ready, but the moment they received the information of the flame breathing and the thunder breathing, their faces flushed red with excitement as they could tell how strong they were. Dear, can you tell us more about the breathing style? Not only Sona but the others were also curious. Well, it's hard to explain, so I will show it directly. Taking his sword out of his space storage, Riser stood a bit further and then performed the flame breathing. At that moment, everyone widened their eyes. Like the name, the flame breathing was like a flame. It was explosive and fast, and the moment they realized, it was already too late as everything was burnt by it. Meanwhile, thunder breathing was fast. It was so fast and sharp. Unlike his strange naming senses on the mocking gear, the name of his sword technique was straightforward. Then, Riser-chan, do you have other techniques other than flame breathing and thunder breathing? I do, but I won't show it since it will take a long time, and even if I use it, no one can learn it, so it is a waste of time. Everyone. To be honest, they wanted to see him use his sword technique more, but at the same time, they also knew with how strong he was, the number of individuals that could force him to get serious was so low. There was probably almost none. If Riser knew what they thought, he would also think so, as he knew that the number of people that could threaten him was almost none. As for why he couldn't say no one, it was because he had become one of the strongest in this world. Those gods from other pantheons or pagan gods aside, Riser thought those who could threaten him were only the dragon gods, such as Ophis or Great Red, but even so, he didn't think they could K*LL him, especially with his immortality, Phoenix ability, Crisis, and Ruler. With all of those combinations, he was practically immortal. However, there was no need for him to think about those strong beings as he knew the chances of those strong beings becoming his enemies were zero. Why? It was because there was no conflict between them, after all. Still, with all of the matter of those 5 girls in Zenovia finished, Riser looked at Saji and Tsubaki. Saji. Tsubaki. Come with me. You two need a different way of training. Serafal, Sona, Saji, and Tsubaki aside, Riser looked at the rest and reprimanded them. Focus on your training. I won't let you go home if you're lazy. 6x. As Riser scolded them, he thought they would work hard, but why were they blushing? Riser rolled his eyes to the sky and thought that being a gentleman was hard, but he could think about those girls later as there was something that he needed to talk about with the 2 Sacred Gears users. First, Saji, how do you want to fight? Chapter 247, Training Arc 4. Saji, who had been waiting for his chance for training, especially after he was shown by Riser's generosity, suddenly became confused. Hesitating, he decided to ask, what do you mean, Riser-sama? Riser stared at Saji and explained, your Sacred Gear and Absorption line is quite versatile, and you can use it in a variety of ways. So I want to ask you how you want it to develop in the future. Do you want to become a close combat like a warrior? Be a semi-long range attacking the opponent from a distance? Support by helping your friends? The Sacred Gear is a tool that is moved and developed with the feelings and wishes of its host. Depending on your feelings and wishes, the absorption line will change, so I want to know what kind of role you want to be in since, depending on your feelings and wishes, I need to change how I will train you. Moreover, Riser didn't want to waste his time with Saji, so he wished to train Saji as soon as possible instead of wasting his time. Saji thought for a moment and recalled the day of the fight when Riser fought so many powerful foes one after another, standing straight, protecting everyone. At that time, he knew such a man was the only one suitable for Sona, and his wish changed to help the 2, but at the same time, it also became his wish to it. I want to become like you, Riser-sama. Compared to Serorg, Saji felt that Riser was the man that he thought to aim to be. While he knew that he couldn't compare himself to Riser, he wished to be as close as possible. If that's your wish, then I will train you until you bleed. You are okay with that? Yes. Good. Riser nodded and then explained how Saji was going to develop his Sacred Gear, Absorption line. Frankly, he felt that Saji's way of using his power was too simple and monotonous. While it wasn't bad, it wasn't good either, especially when God died. So there was no limit to the development of the Sacred Gear. By then, Rise told Saji how to use his Sacred Gear well, such as changing the color of his line so it would be invisible, using it as a rope so it could be used to move like a Tarzan, adding more lines so it could drain the opponent faster, changing the sizes of the line, overloading the opponent with energy, giving a strange curse to the opponent, blasting the line into the opponent, and various others. At this moment, everyone fell into silence, and they understood why Riser didn't give Saji and Tsubaki a mocking gear. After all the things mentioned by Riser needed to be learned, and one needed time to learn them. So if Riser gave Tsubaki and Saji a mocking gear, they might not be able to focus and become weak as they would lack specialization since he could imagine they would subconsciously use the mocking gear instead of the Sacred Gear. If Riser gave an example, it was like learning mathematics and history at the same time. Instead of becoming better at 2 subjects, they would mess up on the exams as they were unable to learn well. Naturally, there was an exception that could teach everything together, but Saji and Tsubaki definitely weren't such an exception. Moreover, have you ever thought of using your absorption line like a sword? SW sword. Saji was dumbfounded. Yes, a sword. Riser explained how the absorption line could become a gigantic sword with a dragon head-like tip and could extend and shrink at will. To make it more dangerous, you can make it like a saw, so you can cut down your opponent easier by shrinking the blade. Shudder. Saji got a shiver when he thought of developing his Sacred Gear into a blade that could shrink and extend at will. Even more, you can drain their stamina, energy, blood, and any other things, making this sword become more dangerous. Moreover, in my imagination, the balance breaker state of this Sacred Gear will make you able to create Vritra from that blade, and you can use it like a weapon to crush your opponent with its powerful jaws to death. Everyone. They sucked a deep breath and looked at Saji's absorption line, which was so simple, yet in Riser's head, it had become such a brutal weapon. Don't underestimate your Sacred Gear. While it might not be Longinus, the death of God has changed everything, and there is no limit to the development of your Sacred Gear. If you believe it, then it is possible to turn it into a Sacred Gear that is as strong as the Longinus. Saji also felt excited as he knew his absorption line wasn't weaker than the boosted gear of Issei. If you can win this rating game, then I will give you rewards, Saji. Riser got the rest of the Vritra-type Sacred Gears, and as long as Saji won this rating game, he planned to put those Sacred Gears into Saji, making him even stronger. Really? Riser-sama? Yes, I have prepared them, so win. Yes. As for who he should win against, Saji didn't even need to guess. Okay, it's your turn, Tsubaki. Yes, Riser-sama. Tsubaki nodded and felt a bit nervous while also excited. You don't need to get nervous. To be honest, while Saji's sacred gear is good, I like your sacred gear more. Really? Saji, who was still around, fell in silence, but he decided to ignore it as he knew Tsubaki was Riser's woman, so there was nothing he could do, and he might as well focus on his training more as he wished to develop his sacred gear. Tsubaki's sacred gear is Mirror Alice. This sacred gear takes the form of a large full-body mirror and has the ability to reflect attacks with double the damage on the attacker, but cannot be summoned twice in a row without a cooldown period. Still, Riser felt that using this sacred gear as a shield was wasteful. Tsubaki, since your sacred gear takes the shape of a mirror, how about you develop it like a mirror? Develop it like a mirror? Yes. Riser nodded. Anything that a mirror can do, this sacred gear can help you to realize it. Mirror. Creating and manipulating mirrors of various shapes, sizes, and utilities that might be the only ideas they could think of, so Riser decided to help. Mirror has versatile uses, or rather, it is one of the best abilities. By using a mirror, Tsubaki could use her sacred gear for communication, to reflect and weaponize rays of light, to create mirror duplicates of a desired person, and to move instantaneously between mirrors. Even more so, you can also enter the world of the mirror and use it to attack suddenly or retreat. Mirror World. Tsubaki, Sona, Seraphol, and even Saji, who had been listening, were dumbfounded. Was Mirror Alice such a powerful sacred gear? It was the first time for Tsubaki to learn about it. Just imagine that you make thousands of copies of Zenovia by using your sacred gear. Can you imagine how crazy it is when there are many berserker-like warriors appearing on the battlefield? Everyone could imagine thousands of Zenovia, who were on a rampage, destroying everything with Durandal in her hands. Cough. Zenovia was a bit depressed. I am not a berserker, Riser-sama. Whether it was Ruriko, Tomo, Rhea, Momo, or Yura, they decided to follow Zenovia to eavesdrop on how Riser was going to train Tsubaki and Saji. If something went awry, they could put all the blame on Zenovia, and the worst thing they could think of, their virginity might be taken from them by Riser, which was something they didn't mind as they wished so. Riser decided to ignore Zenovia and continued with his explanation. Your sacred gear is the ultimate support of sacred gear that can help you and everyone. Yes, Riser-sama. Zenovia nodded, and she gently caressed the Mirror Alice. She had never thought that it could become a powerful support for Kaicho and everyone. At the same time, she also understood why Tsubaki had always been their support when they fought against Riser. Do your best to train your sacred gear, Tsubaki. Zenovia shouted. Tsubaki. Fuh. Nevertheless, as Riser took water to wet his throat, he knew that there was another individual that he needed to teach. Sona, it's your turn. Follow me. As she was his wife, Riser planned to make his wife stronger. Chapter 248. Unimaginative. Unlike Tsubaki and Saji, this time, they didn't dare to follow when Riser asked Sona to follow him. Naturally, Seraphol was an exception. What are you going to teach Sona-chan, Riser-chan? Latching onto his back, Seraphol asked that question curiously. She had been following him, listening to all of his teachings in silence as she was extremely shocked by his knowledge. Sword techniques, martial arts, inventors, creative minds, genius trainers, etc. Seraphol knew that it was wrong, but somehow, she wished to have his child right away. After she saw the death of Surzek, she knew that anything could happen in this era when God had passed away. Seraphol didn't wish to have regrets and thought that, even if she might cause sadness to her little sister, she wanted to have him. Moreover, it wouldn't be bad to share a man with her little sister. However, what does Sona think? Seraphol peeked at Sona, but Sona's eyes had always focused on her husband, completely enraptured. While Seraphol was speechless, she also didn't feel surprised, especially when she had watched Riser's steps from nothing to now. After that divorce with Rias, who would have thought Riser could become Lucifer? Yet, it was also because of this reason that such a man was just too fascinating. How long are you going to follow us? Riser glanced at Seraphol. Seraphol pouted and threw a tantrum. Riser-chan is a bully. Humph. I won't talk with you. Humph. Humph. As she folded her arms, causing her breasts to swell even bigger, she looked away but kept glancing in his direction from time to time. Riser and Sona. Still, I have never asked you this before, but have you ever trained to become strong, Seraphol? Riser suddenly asked. Seraphol thought for a moment, trying to remember whether she trained or not. Unlike her youth, she had been busy with many things, such as her magical girl show and her job as Leviathan, so she hadn't trained for as long as she remembered. Whether Riser or Sona were in a hurry, but the two were quite speechless by Seraphol. No. Seraphol nodded. It seems that I don't train. There was a question mark on her words, but she couldn't be blamed. After all, the last time she trained was before the Devil Civil War. It was some time before she was still the heiress of the Citri clan, and at the time, She couldn't even imagine that she would become Leviathan. Riser nodded and didn't feel surprised. The majority of strong beings were like that as they became strong the moment they were born in this world. They might have trained, but they didn't train with an obsession like Sarorg. Moreover, there was no need for them to train since they would become stronger as they grew older, especially when their pedigrees were the best of the best. It should be the same case as Surzek, as he was strong from the moment he was born. However, his wife differed from Serafal, and Sona needed time to train her strength further. Before I train you, how about you show me how you fight first, Sona? Okay. Hey, is that all? Why didn't you ask me more? So-chan. Riser-chan. Don't ignore me. However, Riser and Sona were focused on their spar, yet even if he said that it was a spar, it was nothing but a demonstration, and to be honest, Sona's power was weak. He knew that he was quite cruel to say this, but the innate ability of the Citri House didn't have much of an advantage over the underworld. The power of the Citri House was the power of water, and in the underworld, where there was no sea, they could only rely on either lake or river. With that limited amount of water, they could only rely on their demonic power, but creating water with their demonic power was simply arduous, and no doubt such an act would drain their demonic power excessively. Moreover, unlike other elements such as fire or lightning that could damage their opponents easily, one needed a large amount of water to cause damage to their opponent. To be honest, in terms of firepower, Sona was weaker than Rias, who inherited the power of destruction. Watching Sona, who created a large serpent of water and then smashed it into her husband, Riser didn't do anything and just let this attack hit him. While Sona hesitated, she gritted her teeth as she knew her husband was the strongest devil, but even so, watching how her attack was easily solved by being boiled and changed into steam while doing nothing, she was at a loss. Don't stop. Keep attacking me. Don't hold back and use all of your attacks on me. Yes. Sona answered as she showed amazing control over her water manipulation, creating a variety of beasts that charged toward her husband in various directions. Riser didn't move like before and just clad his body with the armor of flames, causing all of Sona's attacks to turn into steam. He nodded as he understood Sona's level. Riser-chan is a bully. Don't bully Sona-chan, Riser-chan. Serafal, who was on the side, felt her little sister was bullied by Riser, but neither Riser nor Sona paid attention to this woman. Sona kept attacking him until he told her to stop. However, Riser ignored Serafal since it wasn't his first time to bully Sona, especially on the bed since her reaction was too much, so it couldn't be helped, right? Okay, stop, Sona. Okay. Sona stopped, and her breathing became heavy as she used a lot of her demonic power to attack her husband previously. If she was against another opponent, she might not have shown such embarrassment, but facing her husband, the strongest devil in the underworld, she needed to give her all, so her consumption of her demonic power was intense. Sona, your technique is amazing. There is no doubt that your mastery of your power should be several times higher than Rias. Riser had no doubts about this matter, as he knew Sona's mastery over water manipulation was higher than anyone's. If he made a comparison, it was like Sarorg's mastery over a physical ability. Thank you. Sona was happy, but she was smart and knew that her power was nothing compared to her husband and her older sister. However, you shouldn't limit the development of your power. Limit the development of my power? Sona was confused. What do you mean, dear? I mean, is all of your attacks about shaping water into a certain form, then bashing it into your opponent? Yes. Sona nodded naturally. Riser took a deep breath and fell into silence, but only then did he realize how monotonous and uncreative the devil was. But maybe it was all due to their long age that they didn't long for change, and with their power, it was enough for them to rampage. Yet it was also because of this that nothing had changed after a long time. An angel who had a light manipulation ability would only shape it into a spear and then throw it into someone. The fallen angel also wasn't much different and only changed the color of their light manipulation with colorful and funky colors. Even Surzek, while he was said to be the strongest, did nothing but use the power of destruction. Sona and all the members of the Citri House should be similar as they would only use their water manipulation to bash it into their opponent. However, Riser also couldn't complain much since his family was the same, and before he got to the system, all he did was just create a bigger fire to fight his opponent. Yet, this mistake could no longer be tolerated. Sona was his wife, so Riser was going to teach her. Sona, have you heard about the water phase change? Chapter 249. Sona is going to become strong. You mean, a liquid, a gas, and a solid? Yes. Riser nodded. Water is an element of change, so you should let your creativity work instead of trapping in a single concept where you can only bash a large amount of water into your opponent. Or the Citri House only use their ability to shape water into a different shape, then bash it into opponents? Serafal and Sona fell in silence. To be honest, Riser was confused at why, when Serafal was born with the power of ice, no one thought to copy it, and they just stayed comfortably with the power of water. Shouldn't they try something else, such as the power of steam or vapor? Even if there was such a limitation, they should be able to combine their innate ability with magic, right? Yet, why did they never do that? Moreover, was it really only water? Was the liquid not possible, such as blood, tears, or even sweat? If they wish to, they should be able to develop the power to do that, right? To be honest, if he was originally a devil, he might not think that such a thing was possible, but as he was initially a human and also had seen few plots of the DxD, he knew that as long as one had creativity, everything was possible. It was the same case with Issei, who developed a powerful perverted technique where he could strip a woman's clothes instantly, suck a nipple to power up, or even talk to breasts. If Issei could develop such a ridiculous technique, logically, the others should be able to do the same, right? In Seraphal's case, if she went even further, then she might even freeze time, yet she didn't do so as she was satisfied with the status quo. Nevertheless, there was no need to worry about Seraphal as she was strong, and there were only a few opponents that could defeat her. However, Sona was different. Listening to Riser's explanation of how she could develop her power further, Sona was silent as she held her head, wondering why she had never done all of that. With her mastery over water manipulation, everything that her husband told her should be possible. Creating a mist to hide from an opponent. Absorbing the liquid from the opponent's body until they lose all the moisture inside their bodies. Changing the direction of the opponent's bloodstream. Creating an illusion with steam. There were many more. However, Riser knew that this mistake was all due to Seraphal. While Sona might seem exasperated and even angry whenever Seraphal tries to act like a spoiled child in front of her, there is no doubt that Seraphal is her role model. Sona might have always wished to copy her older sister, creating a gigantic movement that was capable of destroying a country or two with ease, but her strength definitely wasn't that. Unlike Seraphal, who had an abnormal amount of demonic power, Sona didn't have so much demonic power, but her control over her ability reached a frightening degree of mastery. This was her strength, but she walked and followed her older sister's path devotedly, thinking this was the best, so she was unable to use that advantage to make herself stronger. Watching her wife's expression, Riser knew that his wife had realized everything. Thank you, dear. No problem. Sona was glad that Riser was her husband, and she was also glad that Seraphal was her older sister. What's wrong, So-chan? Seraphal wondered why Sona suddenly stared at her face. Sorry, Wani-chan. Huh? Why did So-chan suddenly apologize? What's wrong? What's wrong? Seraphal was confused and scared. I can't be like you, who can freeze the entire country easily. I don't have enough demonic power to do something like that, so I will stop to follow your path and use my own path instead. Seraphal fell into silence before tears like a river ran down her cheeks. Pawa. So-chan has grown up. Seraphal leaped into Sona's body and hugged her tightly, pressing their cheeks together as she cried. Geez, you don't need to act so exaggeratedly. Sona was helpless, but she also hugged her older sister. But Wani-chan is happy. So do your best, So-chan. No matter what your path is, Wani-chan will support you. Seraphal winked as she looked at Riser. Riser-chan is also going to support So-chan, right? That's natural. She is my wife. Seraphal smiled as she thought that everything was so wonderful with the three of them, but at the same time, she was scared that everything would change if she were truthful to her feelings. However, this feeling of hers, even if she kept it in her heart, didn't matter as she was happy with the way it was. Watching Sona and Riser happy together was enough for her. By now, there shouldn't be a problem for you to develop your own techniques. Yes. While Sona felt a bit disappointed as she couldn't be trained by him, she knew it was more effective for him to train others as she could train by herself, mastering all the techniques that she could think of inside her mind. However, there are two things that I want you to master besides your water manipulation ability. What is it? It's two magics. Archiver and lightning. Archiver and lightning? Sona was familiar with lightning, and she was happy to learn it. But what was lightning? This will be our family's trademark magic. Only we and our child will learn it. Sona blushed but nodded eagerly. Seraphal. Child. As they were a husband and a wife, naturally, they would have children, and Sona wished to have them as soon as possible. However, Riser wasn't in a hurry as there was 1 year before Sona graduated, and she was extremely busy with her debut of the raiding game, Youth Gathering, and raiding game School for the Low Class and Reincarnated Devils. While having children might not affect the development of all of them, Riser knew that when his wife was pregnant, he would be the one who took care of the rest. Frankly, it didn't matter to him as those matters were easily solved by him, but he knew there were many dangers in his surroundings, and he didn't want his child to be born in such a dangerous time. Still, he taught his wife, Archiver, and also lightning, a magic that created a shortcut in the process of transmitting electrical signals to the brain, making the body move based on reflex, creating a faster reaction to movement. Those two magics, even though they might not have crazy firepower, Sona knew how precious they were. Dear, Frankly, Sona wondered whether it was okay for her to learn those magics. Riser only smiled and gently raised her bangs, kissing her forehead. You are my wife, Sona. There was no need for more words as her status was enough to make him pamper her and give his everything to protect her. Sona hugged him as she leaned on his chest. Seraphal took a deep breath, and her mind started to waver, wondering whether she was really satisfied with observing from a distance. Still, as Riser hugged his wife, he thought for a moment and asked, by the way, Sona, do you want to learn swordsmanship? Chapter 250, Special Circumstance. Swordsmanship, huh? Okay. Sona never thought of learning swordsmanship, but after hearing her husband's suggestion, she decided to agree as she was also quite curious about swordsmanship, especially when she often saw that Zenobia was trained by Riser. So-chan is going to become a female warrior. Wani-chan needs to prepare bikini armor for So-chan. You don't need to. 2x. Riser and Sona quickly stopped Seraphal at the same time. Nevertheless, as Riser had promised to teach Sona swordsmanship, he taught her a single technique. It was also the same case as Zenobia and Tomo. If there was a year or two, then it might be possible to teach all the techniques, but there was only a month, and one technique should be enough to strike down many opponents. However, bikini armor, huh? Riser looked at Sona and Seraphal at the same time. Usually, he should only look at Sona, but he was afraid his wife would notice his strange gaze, so he looked at Seraphal. That way, Sona wouldn't notice anything strange. Do you want to see us in bikini armor, Riser-chan? Seraphal asked. Is that so? Sona pushed the frame of her glasses. Wait for tonight. Riser didn't refuse his wife's kindness. I will go back first. I need to finish some work. I will check on you later. Yes. Sona nodded, then kissed Riser's lips. Do your best. Riser was stunned but then kissed Sona's forehead before he left, as the faster he finished his word, the faster he could rest. Seraphal was about to follow, but her collar was grabbed by Sona. Cough. Cough. So-chan. Your Wani-chan can't breathe. I am sorry. Even so, there didn't seem to be an apologetic expression on Sona's face. While Seraphal was speechless, she asked with a happy smile. Is So-chan lonely without your Wani-chan? If so, then Wani-chan will stay with So-chan all the time. Wani-chan will become So-chan's cheerleader. No, you don't need to. Even Seraphal had always been 100% cheerful. Facing this stoic Sona, she could only shut her mouth. So, what's wrong, So-chan? So why did Sona tell her to stay? Do you like my husband? For the first time in her life, Seraphal was unable to say anything. Riser didn't know the conversation between Seraphal and Sona as he was focused on something else, which was his job, but suddenly, someone knocked on his room, opened the door, and peeked inside timidly. Riser-sama. What's wrong, Issei? Well, Issei wasn't sure how to talk about her problem, and she could see Riser was quite busy, so she hesitated. Is it Kaneko? How did you know, Riser-sama? Issei was surprised. Even Riser didn't need to guess why Issei came to his office. He had previously asked Issei and Lee to teach Kaneko, but since Issei came to him, there should be a problem with Kaneko. However, he didn't feel surprised as all the peerage members that were collected by Rias had a problem. Unlike Sona and Riser, who used their own ability to gain all of their peerage members, all the peerage members collected by Rias came from her older brother. To be honest, unless one was tempted by the benefit gained from becoming the servants of the devil or a special circumstance, they wouldn't become a reincarnated devil, a devil with the lowest status in the underworld. Yes, the lowest status. In the eyes of all the devils, the reincarnated devil wasn't a devil, and they were just a fake. Naturally, they felt those reincarnated devils were lower than those who were pure-blooded. However, power changed everything. As long as one was strong enough, they would be respected. It was the same case with Tannen and Rudiger Rosenkreuz, but at the same time, it was also due to their status that they were caught in their current trouble. Tannen's situation was a mess, and Rudiger could only stay low-key, avoiding the limelight so he wouldn't be hit by the aftermath of Tannen's problem. However, if Tannen was strong enough, this wasn't a problem. Unfortunately, Tannen was weak, so he was unable to change the status quo or even defeat Riser and all the devils in the underworld. Nevertheless, there must be a reason why one decided to become a reincarnated devil, but Riser couldn't imagine how Aquino, who was the child of the leader of Gregory, Barakiel, would become Ria's servant. After all, he had heard that even if she had lost her mother, her life wasn't that bad. But in the end, due to special circumstances, she decided to become Ria's servant. While there might not be evidence, Riser somehow could imagine that all of the special circumstances that happened to Aquino must be related to Ria's family. It should be the same case with Kiba, Gasper, and even Kaneko. While Riser wasn't sure what was happening to Kaneko, he knew that Kaneko's situation must be related to Kaneko's special circumstances. He took a deep breath and thought to take a moment of break to talk with Kaneko. Let's go. I will talk with her. Okay, yeah. In the corner of the underworld, a group of people had been hiding. Unlike the Earth, the population of the underworld was smaller, and there were many places that still lacked modernization, making it a perfect place for one to hide. Still, many things happened to this group, and they were in unrest, especially when they didn't know who they should face. Similarly, a young man with a monkey-like feature was staring at the purple sky, wondering who had attacked Valley and what kind of enemies they would face. Biko, wake up, Nya. However, suddenly, he was kicked by someone and fell to the ground. Kuroka, what are you doing, you stupid cat? Biko was furious as he faced the young woman who kicked on the butts. Stop showing your stupid face. Come and help me. A beautiful young woman with two cat-like tails and a black kimono, which she put in a vulgar way, showing her deep ravine between her big breasts. I'm not showing a stupid face. I am in the middle of deep thinking. Biko protested as he rubbed his butts, but then he asked curiously, help with what? Let's get my little sister. Biko looked at Kuroka in disbelief. Are you serious? Of course, I am serious. Kuroka looked at Biko without the joke-like attitude she usually showed. I can't entrust my little sister to the Gremory. Those devils are all cunning and evil beings. I don't want to lose Chiron. She knew how dangerous the situation of the supernatural world was, and it was better for her little sister to follow her instead of joining the dangerous elements such as the Gremory. Still, Kuroka hadn't heard an answer from Biko, so she asked, Are you scared, Biko? Who is scared? Biko quickly refuted, but he told her his concern. But are you sure that you can take her? The new Lucifer is different, you know? The moment he notices us, we might be attacked. Unlike the previous Lucifer, he knew how aggressive the new Lucifer was. But isn't that good? Kuriko grinned dangerously as she licked her lower lip. I want to see how strong our new Lucifer is. The two smiled and thought that it was a good chance to see how strong the new Lucifer was.